Let's see. Oh, it's 4:50.
Annie, may I double check a couple things really quick?
Yes.
For the agenda for the agenda for workshop, I just have like discussion items, the Nancy, Dana, and then Lisa. I didn't know if there was a more, that's all I have is item 1 and 2.
Yeah, that's all we're having today.
Okay.
Yep, you got it.
That's what I thought, but just in case.
Yes, no problem. Hey, Paula, how are you?
I'm good. Hi.
Good. Busy. This is a busy time of year. All right. Looks like we're about there. I think he's got Dan. Ooh, we got a few more Zoom rooms here than usual.
It looks like John is attempting to join, but I'm not sure there's something on his Zoom that's not working. So that's the only person in the waiting room still.
Yeah.
Okay.
It might be something going weird with connection.
Why do I see that he's in here? Huh. Okay.
I guess I don't see it.
I don't either. It just keeps showing joining. It might be acting angry Zoom.
Angry Zoom. All right. Well, it is 5 o'clock. I think we shall start. What do you say? Is that okay? All right. I'm going to go ahead and call our workshop together. We don't have to do anything formal. I just want to make sure we've got Dan, just for Michelle's purposes.
Yep.
Cody's here. Michelle's here. Gina's here. Rob's here. Jennifer's here. Maggie's here. I'm here. Paul's here. Jenny's not here, but John's attempting, I guess. But anyway, all right, we'll start up. So I don't know. We are waiting for Nancy Dana. She should be here anytime between now and a quarter after to discuss, kind of unpack her ideas for director search. And then the other thing I can say is I think we received some documents from Lisa, and I think, can we start with that, Lisa, kind of going through that? The posting and such, I was thinking.
Yep.
All right.
Paula, I just shared those 2 documents with you, Paula. So just so that you have them. I wasn't sure if you were going to be here or not. So
She comes to every workshop. Love it.
All right. Well, that's awesome. I know she's in my student advisory council too, and she leads the whole thing. She's amazing. So I love her.
Yeah.
Thanks, Paula. All right. So I did just share a couple of documents with you just about some of my ideas. And so I just wanted to thank you for naming me as the chair. So, my goal is to really involve the community. I think if you look at the 2012 hiring, that was what I was most proud of, was the involvement by the community, and that we were able to, have continuous updates to the entire community and the staff got to interview and, do a lot of things like that. And I would, of course, be transparent as well. I also kind of recognize what a large responsibility it is as well. So I hope that we can, all work together to make things go smoothly. And so I do have the couple of documents that I did share with you. Do you all have them, or would you rather just have me share my screen and I have just kind of a couple of questions, a couple of highlights that I wanted to talk about with you. So
I like the share screen.
Okay.
My only request is make it 150% for my old eyes.
Okay, it's disabled right now. So.
Oh, I think, yeah.
Try again, maybe.
Okay.
I tried to change it.
Okay. Yep. Now it's there. So, all right. Good deal. All right. And then let me make it larger here. All right. And I'm going to start off with the kind of, I don't know if it was like a document as far as like exactly what we would be doing, but kind of some questions and things like that I had that I was just kind of concerned about or thinking about, how do all of these groups kind of fit together? And so, obviously kind of the first thing that we need to do, I think, is probably I need to meet with the search committee, but some of these questions, I'm not sure if the search committee could answer or if they need to be answered by the board. So I think that, we need to talk about them a little bit. And then at some point, the board is going to have to make some of these decisions. And so that I just kind of wanted to put that out there. And then just thinking about the search committee meeting, whenever the search committee meets, so that would be myself and Gina, and I think Rob and Jennifer, is that something that the board would expect to be live streamed or just have notes available, or what are the expectations for that? I mean, does it matter?
Live stream might be down. Oh, sorry. I don't know if somebody else is talking. I was just thinking if it could be live streamed, I don't see any harm in that. Then it'd be even more accessible for people to watch.
And I guess that was my question, Lisa, is one thing we struggle with is how do we engage the community? And so I was curious if this would help, because I think we don't normally live stream other, committees, subcommittees or whatever. It's not normally done. But in this case, I'm not saying it has to be, but if that does help, to Gina's point, But how would that information get out? Because it's easy for teachers or parents to get a YouTube link, but how would the community get a YouTube link?
Well, when we talk about the community, I really mean the staff. I mean all the members of the MSA community.
I see. Okay.
Like the staff and the parents, just like the people that are watching probably right now.
Okay. Yeah.
So
we put the live stream URL underneath like where the announcements are, like upcoming events.
Yep.
Like for the board meeting, there's always that live stream link. So even somebody outside in the community, if they were to go to our homepage, would at least be able to watch if they knew where to look. But that would be a very convenient place to go to.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it originates from Justin, Dan. So you started with Justin and he sets the link up.
But yeah, I was just not clear because we have community members who are not parents or teachers, but in this case, we're talking the community within MSA kind of, right?
Mhm. Exactly. Yeah. All right. And then kind of just thinking ahead. So I will plan to continue to do that for at least the search committee. For all of the other task forces, I think that would be too cumbersome to have all of those task forces have their, all of those things live streamed. And so with a task force, you wouldn't need to do that. We'll include the minutes though in the folder on the board website. Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
Oops, Lisa, I accidentally muted you in an attempt to unmute myself. I was also going to say that there is a board page dedicated for this process. So in case you didn't know that.
Yep. I saw that there was a file for the search committee. So I just assume that we'll kind of inside of that folder, we'll break that down into the smaller other task forces. So, okay. I just wanted to make sure that those things were kind of okay with what you guys were thinking about. And then the first thing one of the first things that the committee will have to do is to create the interim director ad. And so I do have a rough draft of that. And I will need to know like the dates that you're thinking about. I know that I think that maybe Nancy might talk a little bit about this today too. So I would like to maybe get her feedback, but I feel like we should try to get the person hired before the end of June. I would like to, get that done probably faster than that. If they're going to start at the beginning of July, obviously they need some time to figure that out too. So we will need like a more specific date from the board.
Sorry, Nancy Dana is here. Should I let her in? Sorry, Lisa. I don't know what we should do.
That's okay. She's the expert on the interim. Let's listen to her. I will certainly, that's better. You can hear me talk anytime.
Okay, sounds good. Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Nancy. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi. Great.
Hi. So I know a little bit about Nancy. I'm Gina. You're the one I was communicating with via email, and I think you also know Lisa.
Yep, I do.
But I don't know if you want to give a more. I know that you're on Max with the governance board, correct?
I am. I've been I've been involved in charter schools for about 20 years, and was part of the original team that put your school together. I'm kind of the grandma in the charter world, actually. I've been doing them for a long time. I've started 19. I've closed 4. I do board governance is kind of my thing of late. I recently left St. Paul City School after 13 years, and now I'm a contract working on academic growth for college prep elementary. There's not a lot about charters that I don't actually know. So I'm happy to help you out here.
Well, thank you so much for coming. So we were really hoping that you might be able to run through, what you know about director searches, what you know about interim searches, if you have any strategies for us, and then also a Q&A session.
Sure.
Okay, great.
Sure, happy to. Because this is not uncommon where a director is in transition or a director leaves, sometimes more suddenly than others. There are a couple of people out there that have been directors in the past that are retired and are available to, kind of be the placeholder for you while you're looking for the perfect fit. And I really do encourage you to take that step, that you don't try to fill right now. Even if what you're doing is putting a placeholder in just through your summer. So you've got someone who's still kind of following your current plan, whether you're still doing curriculum development or you're doing staff development, whatever you have in mind as a growth plan over the summer. You want someone to still do that. You don't want to necessarily have your new director just try to figure that all out, especially at a time when the new director is going to have to get to know the staff and have a little growing period themselves. Directors are when they're looking, this is the kind of funny thing about directors. Directors usually look in January, February. Teachers usually look in March and April. And then if it comes up in June and July, a director that you might get to respond at that point, you kind of wonder, well, why are you available in June and July? Now, that's not very kind, and it's not always very fair, but it's clearly the only answer that would work in that interview is that they didn't feel it was right to leave their school prior to the end of June, and so, which is the end of the school year, and so now they're out looking. But to start as a director in the middle of the summer is really rough. You've got too much that you want to try to even casually build over the summer. And for most of us that have been through COVID, there's nothing casual about this summer. I mean, we're undoubtedly, everybody's going to have to be running summer school, or at least some attempt to that. Or if not, you're doing some pretty fast curriculum mapping, like, well, what worked, what didn't work? Are we back in place? How are we going to change that? How are we going to address academic growth? I mean, that's what we're supposed to be doing. So I highly encourage you to find a placeholder, find a director that will come in, take your time with the search. Even if it's through the fall, you'll still get people that, they want some time to leave wherever they're leaving as well. So everybody can do this in the right way. Nobody's leaving mad, and nobody's coming out of a bad situation where they have to try to explain why now suddenly they're available to you.
Nancy, this is Rob Krieger. I'm a college professor at Concordia University in St. Paul. And so I've been on many searches, but this is certainly my first foray into hiring a director of a charter school. And so I'm on the subcommittee that's working through this. And one of my questions is, I was an advocate from the beginning of the interim for the same reasons you mentioned. But I want to know about your opinion when we start advertising for this position. Seems to me that it's only fair to say we want to hire a 1-year interim to get, so that there is some continuity there, as opposed to all of a sudden getting a new director and now they have to decide on non-renewals for next year. It just seems to me in academia, 1-year positions are the way as an interim. Talk to me about that versus, well, we want you at least for 6 months, but if you could hang out for a year, depending on what the other person, right? I mean, I think some clear objectives makes far more sense, but
yes.
Talk to me about that, please.
Well, no, I agree completely. again, if you want a director to start mid-year of your school year, you're asking them to do a pretty steep climb on the learning curve. They would be walking in like in 6 months. Well, they don't know your staff, so how are they going to continue to promote you in coaching? Or they don't know your academic plan, so it's a pretty fast catching up to say, well, I guess we're on course or not. It's not fair to anybody involved. And again, not always very kind, but my first ask is, well, what do you do? Why are you available in December? Why are you now still either unemployed or looking to switch mid-year? It just adds more of a kind of a loaded dice to the game. So I highly agree. I think you advertise, or you find someone that says it's a 1-year placement, and during that year you're going to take a look at, well, what are the qualities you really do want? I mean, as you know, maybe even in this last time with the interview, the person answered all the questions correctly. I mean, you got what you thought you wanted, and maybe it was, or maybe it wasn't. So you need to kind of pare that down into, actually, it's called a BMI interview. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it ends up being more of behavior management inventory. So in your interview questions, you can get standard answers, particularly from directors. We all know how we all know what you're looking for. And but what you want to ask are, well, how did you come to that decision? What was the decision? What was the behavior? What was the thought process that got you to do X, Y, or Z? So that you're really finding out more about the person that you want to hire, other than, they've had great experience. Well, a lot of people have had great experience. That doesn't mean they're still going to be the right fit for you. So taking an interim, having someone there, gives you the time as a school to figure out what it is you're looking for. What are the characteristics that you really find most important? What are the ones that, it'd be nice, but maybe it doesn't matter? And what do you want to make sure you don't see, so that you don't find out at the end of a year, well, that's a mistake. How are we going to get out of this one?
So a follow-up on that, when would the best time for a new director to start, in your opinion? And second of all, would you recommend, if it's possible, if, for instance, assuming we're not hiring the interim full-time, like the interim isn't somebody that says, you know what, this is what I want for my second career. I love this place. I want to apply, which of course they could, right? An interim could apply. But I'm expecting, right? That's not the type of interim we will hire. But would it be possible, or do you recommend an interim with any overlap with the new director?
Yes, I do. And you as a team decide if you want. I mean, there are some people that say right up front, whoever's interim is not a candidate for the long-term job, because you want to be fair. You don't want the person that's in the position to end up kind of being a biased opinion. And again, typically the people who come in for these, placeholder positions, they don't want a full-time job. They've already retired out, or they're doing something else, or they've got plans for their own vacation or something, and they're helping you out. They're going to keep the duct tape on the boat, but they've been there, done that. I don't want this job anymore, kind of thing. And that's the person you want. You want somebody who's not coming in with a whole lot of brand new ideas. You want somebody who's going to listen to whatever the concerns were, whatever the problem was, and would certainly help right the ship if that's a burning crisis. But you want your new director to be the one that's building that plan with your staff. So the best plans are to advertise in October, November, and start interviewing December, January. That you make a decision 1st of February, and April, May, that person is in part-time or transitioning or in 1 day a week or in whatever after their other job, if they're still working, to start learning, picking up the pieces, to be ready to start July 1. I mean, that's the new school year. That's when you want someone in place. But you know, the thing about the interim and your new guy coming in, it's, again, the new guy coming in is kind of learning the transitional ropes from your interim, but it's, I would encourage you not to have your interim do anything too major, because they're going to do it their way and then leave. And then your new guy has to, or gal has to figure out, well, how do I clean that mess up if that's not really where we're going? So it's really a placeholder. I mean, fortunately for you, I think, the school's in pretty good shape, and it's not like you're in a crisis position with MDE where you have to have someone that's going to come in and make sure you don't close. That's not where you are. So if you don't do anything too creative or innovative in your next year, and you just reestablish your enrollment, and you get kids back in, and you're able to kind of get this all in feeling again, that'd be a great place for someone new to come in and say, okay, where are we going? What do you want to do? What's the mission here? Where are we? What's our program?
So I don't want to hijack this, but I got a lot of things going in my head. So if somebody else wants to speak, go. Otherwise, I will definitely ask. Cody, you got something?
Yeah, I do have a question. Do you think there are a lot of people out there that would be willing to take a one-year position?
I don't know if there's a lot of them, but I know there are some of them, right? And the thing about that too is that I don't want to say it's not that important if you like them, because of course it is, and they have to get along with your staff, and you have to trust them, and you're still asking them to lead your school, but they don't have to have all the qualities that you're really looking for in your permanent position, right? Again, the people that are most likely to want to do this are retired, so, or recently retired. So they're going to be maybe a little bit on the older side. So they're going to be maybe a little bit more fixed in their ways. But at the same time, they've had enough experience to say, I got your budget, I got your transportation, I got your discipline, we can get your PLC set up, or whatever it is that's kind of missing a little bit, so that you feel confident and safe, and you know you're going forward. You're not wasting a year, but you're not trying to establish anything that's going to be overwhelming for someone new who really you want to take the helm. Does that make sense? Okay.
So one thing, Dan, I don't know if you want to talk more about this, but one of the things Dan has been running is our expansion process. And so what are your recommendations about, do we continue those conversations? I thought maybe an interim might come in with some suggestions on that or some experience on that, but yet you also cautioned us about something, I mean, that's a pretty major thing that we need to consider.
It is. And that's the one exception to what I said, because it takes a year or more to even get into this expansion project. I don't know how far into it you already are, but I know that it takes, in fact, it may be the perfect project for this interim person to help guide the ship, because if you wait on that another year, you're going to be another year out of enrollment, another year out of building development, of all the permits, of the space. I don't know. Are you doing it on your own? Do you still have space there to continue to build out, or are you looking elsewhere?
Yeah, we're looking through a few of those, Nancy. And I think you're hitting it kind of where we're netting out, I believe, which is that expansion is almost regardless of who's kind of in charge as a director. Right. You know, the expansion is a need of the school, and that carries on, and the timing doesn't change. So I like the idea that we can bring in a new set of eyes, but I am helping with that expansion committee. I think we're making some good progress. I'd like to keep that progress going and bring them alongside, if you will. And then if we need to change courses again,
I think you absolutely should. And that, because that's an ongoing thing that's going to take that kind of time and commitment, and you can't afford to stall on that.
Yeah. So yeah, good question, Rob. But I think that's kind of where we're netting out, but certainly open to new ideas as we get someone coming in. I think it can only help.
What's the best way to find these folks, these retired folks out there?
I have a couple of suggestions, but I would say that you want to contact MACS, Minnesota Association of Charter Schools, and let them know that you're in the market for an interim director and you're looking for someone who could step in for a year.
So we don't have to pay to advertise somewhere, just working our contacts is the best way.
Absolutely. And I'm pretty sure you guys are members at MACS, and that gives you a free resource anyway, not only to call in, but also to post it. If you use their career job posting website, on the website, they've got a career finder thing that that posts not only throughout the charter school world, but it goes up to St. Cloud and it goes through the ed regular postings. It's more helpful for teachers, but anybody who's in education uses those sites for job opportunities, and you don't have to pay for that. That's all part of your membership.
And would we want to use that for our longer term director position as well? Or would we be looking at some external entity?
Well, my first answer is yes, but before I kind of land that too hard, have you, if you want to stay local, are you thinking of a national or a regional? Do you know yet kind of what you want?
I don't think that we have an answer to that, but I'm going to yield to Lisa for that.
Good to see you, Lisa.
Last time we mostly posted local, but there were a few like international or not national like charter school associations and things like that where I posted as well. And we did have one candidate that came from a different state. They were not one of the finalists, but they did apply. So I guess that's kind of what I'm looking for, is mostly in Minnesota and maybe regional. I probably would post elsewhere. Like it was free to post at those other places. So I was like, why not, kind of deal. So, but I just, I guess I want to come back to the interim. Were you saying that we should only post at MACS? I mean, I assume MACS is one of the places, but you're not saying that's the only place, right? Okay.
Post it wherever you feel it's a good idea, and that it's going to reach the people that you're trying to reach out to. It's the MACS site is broader than people think. It's not just the charter world, but it's certainly it's not exclusive, but it is free. And I did find, and I have found in the past, that when you do go a little bit broader, as you were talking about, Lisa, there are people who want to move back to Minnesota, or who want to come home for whatever reason, or are coming here because somebody's got another job and they're looking for a job. So there's just no reason not to do a broader search in a bigger advertising group. Most of them don't cost anything, or very much if they do. So
and I would just add, I would encourage that. I moved from Southeast Asia back to Minnesota based on what I read about MSA. So I think it could be considered a magnet for other folks, because not to toot our own horn, but we're getting some good accolades, right, as a school. And so somebody may say, I want to be a part of that, right? And I'd be willing to move states. So I would actually encourage us to open the window a little bit more, because sometimes we feel like only people in our community would be willing to live here, but I would say that's not the case always.
No, I agree completely. Yeah. I think the
Nancy,
only
I'm sorry.
question you're going to have with bringing people in from outside Minnesota is whether or not you can be competitive with whatever salaries they're looking for. Because typically other states, especially either the coasts, pay more than we do. And it's whether or not you can provide either the benefits or the other, the other part of the package that would still make it very enticing. So I'm sorry, Anne, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, other than MACS, so if we decided to also post a little broader, are there other places that you would suggest other than just MACS? I mean,
I would think, I haven't done this for a while, so I would think about that, but I would certainly let you know. Again, it would be, I know there are national educational groups that all have postings in the back of their magazines. Ed Leadership does and ASCD does, and the you know, is there a math science kind of group you belong to? Maybe there's somebody in that area, that arena, that would be more focused to what you're. I'd be happy to research it for you. I don't off the top of my head have an answer, but I can certainly look into it. And Lisa, are you doing advertising for it?
Yeah, I already have a list of about 10 places to post. So, and I actually
Perfect.
reached out to Cody already to ask him to ask you for money to pay for the posting. So I think that's on your agenda today.
Yeah.
Well, that's perfect.
Right, but that's my question is what is worth paying for? I mean, when I'm searching for somebody at the university level, there are places that you just don't spend the money anymore. For instance, Chronicle of Higher Education. There is no evidence that paying for a posting there nets you any more than a lot of the places that you can do free or much lower cost.
Right.
And so I would, publishing in the back of a magazine, they're looking for money to help pay for their subscriptions, right? And I tend to believe that there's not a lot of bang for the buck there. And again, it depends on, certainly in my world there wouldn't be, but there might be in that. That's why I ask.
Yeah, I know. And you're probably, you're certainly not wrong in that opinion. I'm still a generation where all the jobs were in the St. Paul paper, right? We had to pay for the ad in the St. Paul paper. Thank God those are done. But at the same time, that was the only place everybody went. So as soon as that was over, people are going to Indeed. People were going to Craigslist for jobs. I would suggest that you probably are more aware of those sites than I am at the moment, although I'd be happy to look into it for you. That it's not entirely a bad idea to go to the trade magazines because you've got someone who's interested in what you're doing, as opposed to Craigslist, where you kind of have to maybe really find out, are they even a licensed teacher? So I don't know how much you've asked for. I don't know where you've looked for it, but my guess is it might not be a bad idea. I wouldn't pay for the St. Paul paper anymore, but would you be sorry if it's how you got the person that you really wanted? Can you put a price tag on that? I don't know. I think you do what you need to do and not feel like you're throwing money away. That's important.
Most of the ones that I looked at were online, and they usually tend to be like a subscription for a certain amount of time. So then not only would we be posting, we would get the money, we would be getting both of our ads, for the interim and for the final director as well. And then if we had, you get to post so many jobs on there or whatever. So they all are a different amount of money, $30, $100, whatever, but I think I talked to Cody about like trying to get like $600, or it was $600 last time. So of course, with inflation, maybe a little bit more, but that's kind of, I guess, was the avenue that I was looking at.
I know Cody's a tough sell. We'll see how that goes.
I like the idea of if the membership lasts long enough to cover both searches. That sounds appealing to me.
That's two for the price of one. You can't lose. You've already had a fire sale here. You got.
Well, and I feel like if we're advertising for an interim and people that are looking for a more long term would then probably have an idea that they'll be posting in the near future for an actual ongoing director or whatever term we're going to use for that.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right.
Seems to me we just add that line in the interim thing, right? Is that watch for the.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Nancy, have you, there's been talk and people have said that sometimes there are interims that are kind of gifted in the coming in and taking a look at some of the places that they can help with. Instead of just being a placeholder, something that can like come in and start looking at areas of improvement and things we're doing right. Sometimes it takes another eye.
Absolutely.
What we're doing well and what we're not doing well, and
Sure.
help with that. Do you post that different, or is that just something?
No, it's what you ask the person in the interview. I mean, I think you're going to find anybody with fresh eyes is going to be able to come in and say, tell me more about this, because this isn't what I thought I'd see, or what if you already know going into this that there's a certain area that just needs to be corrected, it went south and you need to pull it back in line, or you don't know how you're supposed to approach this, but it's going wrong. I would tell your interim person that, and that would be their focus. Also, I know a building project is a really big deal, but it also has a lot of complications to it. And there's a lot of pieces to a building project. And do you have the enrollment for it? Have you got a plan to make sure you've covered that? Do you have the bonding for it? Are you doing it through bonding? Those are all big, it's a full-time job to run a project like that. So I don't know what the areas are that you'd be concerned with, but I would certainly let your interim know, here's some things we're concerned with. Tell me what you see. Or what we'd really like you to do is spend a week just getting to know the school and tell me what you think, or where do you see areas of improvement? And then be ready for it, because a brand new set of eyes is going to come up with things that, you're all very aware of or comfortable with or haven't any idea about. And then it's like, well, and be careful what you ask for. If you get a whole list of things like that, then what do you want to do with the information? Is the,
I agree. Thank you.
I was wondering how much the community should be involved. Like when we hired the permanent director, we'll have like a day at MSA. Students will interview them, teachers will interview them, community, all of those things. They'll visit classrooms, all of those things. With the interim, is that as necessary? Like, I would like to see the director interact with students, but also we're in hybrid. So if they go to the class, there might be 3 kids in the class.
Right.
I don't know if that would be on Zoom. I don't know that aspect of it. Or is it more of just like, this is, I don't know if that kind of touchy-feely kind of stuff, that's what we're looking for. I'm not sure how to get at that if that's as important with the interim.
Well, you all can make that decision for how you feel about that. And that's something that you should all talk about. I would say it's not as important, but at the same time, you're asking this person to be there for a year. And if people are not comfortable, like with talking to this person, or even, kind of getting an idea of how to get to know them, or, what their sort of even temporary plans are, it could be a long year. You don't want to set that up either. I do believe, and I agree, Lisa, you need to go through some pretty amazing community outreach for your final pick. They've got a lot to say about that. They may not agree with you, but if they don't, you want to know why. And in the interim, it's pretty clear this is not our final selection. We want someone that can work with us, that maybe you even say, we want someone who can support the building project, because the community knows about that, but it's not our final pick. And by the way, what's important to you in our final pick? And, I think it's important to involve them, but not as deeply in the interim. They don't necessarily have a voice in the yes or no, other than it's really clear this person just is the wrong personality for your group of your community. And the nicest people can still not be the right fit. So it's possible that you could get a really good person out there and it's just, not going to work. So.
And I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but does the benefit package look a lot different? I mean, if we're getting someone who's retired, does that matter? I mean, I looked to try to find some like average salaries, and it was kind of less than what I thought. Like I looked at Indeed for interim superintendents, and it was less than what I thought. So I didn't know if there was some other piece that I was missing as far as the salary and the package that goes with that.
Right. it can typically cost less because they're usually not looking for benefits. They usually are not needing the insurance package. They may even come in and say, I'm only working 4 days a week, or I'm working 5 days a week, but not all day. Or I mean, I'm not going to be there 10 hours, or, directors are usually there 10 hours or more a day. So yeah, I think it's fair to say that your final package will end up costing you more, because you don't need to provide the long-term care, the health, things like that. Typically that's already provided in a retirement package for these people. On the other hand, there's some people that just aren't done working yet and want to make sure that they still have, some pretty hefty income. The average charter school director's salary should be between 90 and 125. When you're paying substantially more than that, you need to have a lot of enrollment to support it. And there are some schools that pay more, they definitely do, but every time there's an enrollment crunch, you have to figure out how you're going to sustain that, as well as your faculty. So that, the idea of trying to compete with traditional districts is really, we just can't. We just can't. And if somebody wants that level, 150 or more, then I think you need to suggest that they look in a traditional district, because it's unreasonable to sustain that without also providing a lot of kids for it, and your program and your teaching staff. Your teaching staff should be, getting up there too. I mean, you've got several teachers I know that have been there for a long time, and they have earned the right to be in a good salary range. Well, you can't have a lot of those and a high admin and be able to afford it going forward. So you probably should have a conversation with your finance team, or even with your full board, in the financial picture of what can you really afford. Particularly in this, if you're getting a newer director, a youngish newer director, you want a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan of, sustaining this person and build that out. What will that cost you? As well as, your average teacher, how long they've been there, what will that cost you? Then you break it down, plus your building project, how much are you putting into your building? Then you're going to back it off to say, we need 750 kids just to make this program work. Something like that. I don't know. What's your enrollment now? I don't even know. Anybody know?
Over 500. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So it's not unreasonable to say you're going to need 700 if you're going to support all 3 big deals. And personally, I'm going to tell you, your biggest deal is your teachers. So if you don't keep them happy and stick around, it doesn't matter who's directing your program.
Now, I don't want to take us in too far of a tangent, but I think that is an issue that we are having, is that we would like to pay our teachers more, but we don't have a way of doing that. What are the best resources? And then how can we leverage the director? I mean, I'm thinking in terms of leveraging the director and their vision along those lines, because I think that is something we want to do.
Right. I know. I'm really familiar with this problem. At one point, I was told by a member of my board who was from Sunrise Bank. I had a Sunrise Bank member on my board, and I was, bemoaning the fact that I was having this turnover of staff. It's either right away because they found out that's not for them, and they're kind of the young millennials who are often getting jobs quickly, or it's at a peak point where they've maxed out financially. I can't afford to give them any more money. And then I would lose them, and then they would go off, and then you have to start all over again with this transition of starting them at the bottom and working them up. And he told me that we were the Wells Fargo of charter schools, that every good banker he'd ever met had been trained at Wells Fargo and then had been flipped out and goes off into the world as a really well-trained banker. So at some point you have to accept the fact that you've been really, really training your teachers well. And when you hit the ceiling, you've hit the ceiling and there's nothing you can do about it. And they either love you and want to stay because they love the job, they love the kids, they love the position, or they go, you're right. I want to buy a house. I want whatever. You can't keep hitting that 60, 70, $80,000 for teachers and try to also bring in a director that isn't also at $70,000, $80,000, right? I mean, there are charter schools where the directors are at $80,000. That's what they can do. So it is an ongoing question, and it's one that you really need to look at as a board. I don't know if you have a salary scale right now or how you've been able to maintain it, other than you've got great enrollment, and there's no reason to think your enrollment is going to drop. But there's a lot of charter schools that were at 300 kids and went down under 100. And when you start losing that kind of enrollment, you can't do it. You just can't pay teachers and a director and think that you're going to keep it. So, I mean, enrollment is key to everything. You know that. I know that most of you have been around long enough to know that about charter schools. And you just have to make sure that you've kept yours. There's no great answer to this question. You can't pay them. I mean, you can go get grants to maybe cover something else so that you have more money to offer your teachers. But again, you have to look at the sustainability. You can give them it's like this ESSER funds that we're getting now from the government. All of a sudden, this is so exciting. We're getting money that we've never had before. It's a one-shot deal. You get it once. And you could give your teachers a boost in the arm and tell them how much you appreciate them. And then next year you're going to say, I'm sorry. I still appreciate you, but I can't, you can't do that. That's when you're going to lose them. So you have to pick a course and stay the course and respect them and be as appropriate as you can over time, 2% if it's possible. And you hit a spot, you gotta say this is the spot. And then when you bring a director in, you have to at least have your director make more than your teachers. I hope. There's a couple of schools that don't have that, and I think that's a mistake. But again, they brought the director in who was young and wanted to do it, and they couldn't take one of these experienced teachers. They couldn't bump her down. So she's making more than the director. And that's a problem. Don't get yourself in that position.
It's good to know for sure.
Nancy, do you know of situations where the interim can last longer than a year? Is that common?
It's not common, but it is possible. If you really have done your search and you just haven't found anybody that you want or you like, and then you negotiate with the interim to take another year. I really don't think that'll happen for you. Honestly, it's an outstanding school. You've got a great reputation. You're in a good community. You're not in a crisis area or zone. I don't think you're going to have trouble finding a director, personally. It would be really an honor to be a part of that school, because I mean, look where you've come and look how you've even weathered the storms that you haven't necessarily been happy about. The general community doesn't know about that. They don't know any of your issues. They just think that you're wonderful. So I don't think you'll have any trouble at all getting a director.
You could tell who's got the forte for this, like Rob's done this. I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah. But I sure appreciate your experience just on a charter, because that is something really because when you do advertise in places that are charter school driven, that is a special entity about a charter school versus a public school, right?
Yeah. Well, it's still public. I'm gonna interrupt you.
Yeah, no, it is still public, but no, it is public. I was just talking about like the
traditional district.
Traditional district, yeah, which I've worked at too.
And they do have a lot more money. You can't avoid it or deny it. And because they have more resources, and their union, they have kind of a better safety net that charters will never be able to match. I think that you're going to find, or you could certainly say that there are several other benefits that charters offer, which make it worthwhile for me and have for years. But young pups who want to start a family and buy a house need a little bit more security. So.
Right, and I would argue that the reason we're so strong is the lack of the union, and the fact that the teachers running or being on the board is part of the reason why the school is so good. And so, I mean, I think, but then we have the rub of what's going on right now and some of our little issues that may seem big to us right now, but in the end, our students are still getting a world-class education, and we need to pat ourselves on the back. As hard as COVID has been, our students are still excelling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And don't forget that, really. I mean, when you get kind of in the muck and you get exhausted by this, please look at the perspective from a community member that this is, you guys are in outstanding shape, in a great position. And not only are you still a world-class school, but you're expanding. I mean, and you just expanded, what was that, 5 years ago, 6 years ago? Wasn't that long ago. So that's a pretty amazing decision. So, but it's hard and it hurts and it's very frustrating and it's exhaustive. I don't want to diminish that in any way. It's a lot of work, but it's a huge commitment and a passionate desire to keep it the way it is, because this is why you're there in the first place.
So how realistic is it for us to be able to get an interim by July 1?
Oh, you have to. This is it. You will. You just will. I'm sure you will.
Hear that, Lisa? We will.
Oh, I'm sure you will, Lisa. Honestly, I mean, your current director knows his position is up July 1, June 30th. If he's not already gone, I don't even know. And you'll somebody will come around. And even in the worst scenario, I don't believe this will happen, but let's say you just haven't found somebody. You guys are pretty well strong, teacher driven. You can make it through the next month or two. It'll happen. Don't cut yourself short. You're in great shape to make this work. And you can call me anytime. I'm around. I'm not around tomorrow though. I was going to tell you, Lisa, I'm flying out to California to see Juliet tomorrow. So pretty excited about that. Waited a long time.
Yeah, they've been shut down a lot. That's where I'm from, and all my family's there. They finally starting to open up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, and she's had a baby, so we are pretty anxious to get out there.
Well, tell her congratulations then.
I will, and she'll be very happy to know that I saw you. This was a great surprise to know that we have this connection. This is very fun.
There are many parents in this room who have wonderful children. That's what I would say. That I will not say which one is the best one.
Well, you can mine. You can do that. Then they're not upset. They're
okay, good.
Yeah.
Julia and
Patty.
Oh, thank you.
Patty.
Both amazing students. So I wish them well. I hope she's doing
Thank you. Patty is a hot dog lawyer now, and Juliet is a teacher in middle school, teaching with Trina Wenzel out in California.
Okay. Yeah.
Middle
That's
school,
amazing.
high school. So,
all right.
Yes.
Well, great. Gosh. So what else? Any other thoughts here, Cody?
I just kind of want to summarize some of the things we've talked about. So we have to decide if we want to post in the ad that
Thank you, honey.
that the interim is not eligible to become permanent, or that is an option? Is that one of the things I remember hearing? Or just leave that open?
I've done it both ways, Cody, and maybe you can feel better once you know who's in your interim. But chances are good the interim you're going to get isn't in a position to want the full-time job going on. This is someone who is, not quite ready to give up a position, but really doesn't want the long-term day-to-day anymore. So, and if you end up talking to someone who's retired, prepare yourself for what kind of timing are you really talking about? Are you willing to have someone there every morning, but gone by 2? Or are you okay if it's not 40 hours a week, however they design it? Are you okay if it's 4 days a week? I mean, I'm making all that up. I don't know. I haven't got any particular pattern myself, but I know that most people are retired because they're kind of tired and they've been doing this for a long time. So maybe they want to still help you out and would do what you need to do, but they don't want to be there every day and every athletic event. And they'll cover your board meetings, obviously, because that's their governance working group, but they're not going to do every committee. Or think it through. Again, this is your interim. This is not your final selection. So as an interim, what are you okay of letting go of that your final selection is going to pick up again? You know what I mean? Because there's a ton of stuff that your director does, as you probably know, or maybe don't even know, that maybe they don't want to have a 12, 14-hour day job anymore every day. So, but they would certainly keep it together, keep you together until you get the right thing you want.
That makes a lot of sense.
I do know a couple of people. I told Jeff that I'd be happy to call them and see if they're interested in interim work, and if they are, which one of you Jenna, should I pass their names to you?
Actually, no. I have them go to Lisa.
Lisa. Okay, I can do that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be great. All right. Well, it is about almost 6. I don't know if anyone has any other questions. We'll go ahead and maybe take a break for 6:15 for our board meeting.
You
Thank you
can
so much.
you can call me anytime, honestly.
Thank you so much.
I have told this to so many charter schools. When if one charter school kind of goes south or goes bad or even gets into a mess, it really is a bad reflection on everybody. So it's more important to me that I help you and work with you and get this thing fixed for you than to have it become a kerfuffle that seems to be a representation of all charters, because that's just not the case. So please feel free to call me anytime. As I said, I'm going to be gone, but you can still text me or email me. And I'm not gone for very long, unfortunately. So I'm happy to help out. I would be happy to help you with any selections or conversations. I know this is a really important decision, and I want you to make the right choices.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thanks.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Well, we'll take a break and come back at 6:15.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Okay. Hello, how are you? Is Rob out there? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and call to order our meeting. Paula, would you read the mission vision, please?
So our mission, we provide accelerated curricula in all subjects with an emphasis on math and science. Our vision to be innovative, sustainable model of academic excellence that creates well-rounded lifelong learners and global citizens.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take attendance by roll call and go through the names. Dan Ellingston,
Here.
Cody Schneid,
Here.
Michelle Kurkowski,
Here.
Gina Albers,
Here.
Adam Bartz,
Here.
Robert Kruger,
Here.
Jennifer Bartle,
Here.
Maggie Burgraff,
Here.
Annie Cardenas, here, Paula Capo,
Here.
Jenny Abbs, John Gurecki.
John Gabretsky is present.
Okay, and then I have Jim Martin also is here, our board attorney. All right. I'm going to go ahead and motion to approve the agenda. If I need to add something, do I just add that at this point? I move to approve it or move to approve with an addition? I forgot.
We'll move it, and then in the discussion, we can add it.
Okay, so I'd like to move to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
This is Gina, I'll second.
Okay, and I would like to add on item 12K, an item that says motion to postpone personnel committee work. So I don't know if anyone needs a discussion on that, but basically the discussion is this, that the reason I'm motioning that is that if we bring on a new interim, they might bring on different experiences to the process that'll hopefully help facilitate the evaluation process. And a new, well, I guess I'll do that to just put on 12K. So I'm sorry, I'm a little rattled right now. All right, so do I have a second? Yes, go ahead.
My question is, no, never mind. I can
Yeah, I'll
deal
just
with
put
that.
it on the agenda, then we'll go.
I can deal with that.
Well, you can't put it on the agenda, Annie, unless there's a motion to amend the agenda as you
Right.
requested and then seconded and voted.
Yes. So do I have a motion to amend the agenda?
So move.
Can we, if I have a second one, can we do the motion or is it just in general to amend? Because I have a second thing.
Yeah, I think just a general.
Well, I think you need to specify the second amendment to the agenda also.
Okay, I checked in with John about policy 806, about whether, like about the calendar, and it's set to be an annual update at this time of year. But, and if I'm understanding you, John, correctly, recommendation to have 806 be postponed to like July or August because there may be more recent updates required, so we can kind of one and done it instead of having a secondary review if there's any crisis management updates.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
So
that's kind of, I just wanted to motion.
later.
Yeah, so for the policy agenda, the consent agenda, it would be to strike that policy from the consent agenda, postponing it until the July or August meeting. Is that okay to incorporate into this motion to amend the agenda?
So I move to add 12K, motion to postpone personnel committee, and to remove policy 806, crisis management, from the consent agenda. Is there, oh, sorry, that's your job.
Well,
I'll second that.
yeah,
go
what
ahead.
is the personnel committee, Rob or Annie move?
Well, when we get to that item, we'll discuss it.
We'll discuss it. This is just to add it to the agenda.
Okay, that's fine.
Right. All right, we have a second, and I will roll call vote. Dan Ellingston,
Yes.
Cody Schneid,
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski,
Yes, and who was the second?
me, I was,
Okay.
Annie Cardenas. Gina Albers,
Yes.
Adam Bartz,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas, yes. It's all yeses, motion carries. Okay. I am going to start with the open forum letters. And then when I get to one particular one, so let's go ahead and grab those. All right, first of all, open forum letter from Deb Webster. During this challenging year, the board and its leadership has steadfastly worked to make sure that the needs and the concerns of the MSA community have been consistently met. With this likely being the most difficult year that we've ever experienced in our lifetime, the board has provided a strong presence in the uncertainties we've all faced. Theirs has been an unbelievable role that few could have undertook. I want to voice and support for all the difficult choices the board has had to make, and we will continue to have trust and faith as they continue to move forward. Thanks to each and every one of you for being there. You are my utmost respect and gratitude. Okay. Then I have one here from Jesse Height. Dear MSA Board of Directors, recently teachers learned our 12 contracted PTO days would be used if we are required to quarantine due to a COVID-related issue. Additionally, while quarantining, we cannot teach our classes from home because MSA cannot afford to pay for both a substitute to watch the varying number of in-class students during hybrid and the quarantining teacher at this time. Being that we traditionally have used our contracted PTO for both personal days and sick days, many of us will likely run out of PTO days if required to quarantine. Likewise, on campus, teachers may no longer receive any payout at the end of the year for unused PTO days, money many of us rely on as a supplement for our salaries. Therefore, I was wondering if the Board of Directors would agree to create a COVID PTO balance for staff. This way, teachers won't lose their contracted PTO days, and if quarantining, we would still be able to teach from home if feeling well enough, which is better for our student learners. As an on-campus MSA teacher, I want to teach in my classroom and I want to be here for my students, both in person and online. However, should I have to quarantine due to a COVID-related issue, using my PTO to cover the time feels like a financial punishment. The PTO issue is both an equity issue and a lack of communication issue, which is explained in the following list. And she said we have quite a few open forum letters. So she just has some solutions here and said I didn't have to read the whole solutions, but that if this could happen, she would like to have the solutions forwarded to possibly help with that. We have 15 minutes for open forum. So thank you, Jesse. I have also a prom 2020 guest reconsideration. This is from Ojaswini and Abigail. To whom it may concern. Hello to the COVID-19 Liaison Board of Directors and Administration. We are writing you today for reconsideration in regards to a decision on an out-of-school guest for prom. We understand that it is a complicated time, but please consider some of our points as we should allow guests. Sports are still in season at MSA, meaning that there are many teams from different schools that staff and players are in interaction with on a regular basis. Some of these sports include badminton, baseball, track, and trap shooting. Schools come to complete 2 to 3 times a week to the MSA gym, providing that we have a safe interaction with other schools on a larger scale that we would for prom. It seems like if this aspect of exchange is allowed, then our school should also permit us to invite a very few number of outside students to this very low capacity COVID cautionary event. Additionally, prom will be one of the last celebratory interactions before graduation. We believe that this event will not be thoroughly enjoyed or well attended if certain students are not permitted a +1. Over the past school years, students have had the opportunity to create deeper bonds with students outside of MSA. With about 85% of MSA seniors currently enrolled in PSEO, many students are more closely associated with other institutions that are not MSA. Because of this, there is a major difference between the students that are enrolled in MSA and those who are not. Woodbury, Eastridge, and Park High School have recognized the dynamic within senior students this year and allowed for outside guests for their respective large-scale proms, and we hope that you can do the same. Furthermore, we are a much smaller school and taking great precautions with bigger venues and smaller capacities. We feel that is request is valid and achievable. This year, seniors have been shortchanged for the past 2 years. We have missed out on our homecoming, certain sports experiences, grade bonding, and general normalcy. As students, we are exhausted from fighting for every privilege that our small senior class deserves. We acknowledge that these times are very unique and challenging, but also feel that decisions are made in haste without student input or room for negotiation. As a reminder, the event's capacity of 56 does not change based upon who attends, and the capacity was in fact state sanctioned. We truly do expect many individuals from outside schools to attend, but we would love students to have opportunity to invite those that are important to them. We are making this appeal as two concerned students separated from any large entity with an opinion that is shared by others in our grade and situation. For these reasons and more, we believe that our proposition is plausible and we are willing to honor any actions that need to occur in this approval. Thank you for your time and consideration. We hope you take this plea well and don't take our prom away, please. And that is Ojuswini and Abigail. Okay, now, in this one, I think we need a discussion because I have somebody out in the waiting room right now. And he sent me his open forum letter, and I said I would read his open forum letter, but he doesn't want me to read his open forum letter. And he wants to read his open forum letter and said that I'm infringing on his First Amendment right. And even though we have never done this before, have people in a pandemic. And so I said I would bring it to the board for discussion. And I don't really know how to handle this because since we've been in an emergency order, we haven't done this. May I have some input real quick on what to do right now?
Annie, I don't know that we've changed anything yet, right? I mean, we've talked about perhaps going back into person, but until then, we're still doing the reading of the open forum letters, right? I don't know. I don't think we've made any announcement there. Has anyone else, I guess, any different thoughts?
I don't think we can have it for one and not offer it to others. So since we haven't announced that we can do that, I don't think that would be fair.
Yes. Is there any other thoughts on that?
Just to be clear, Annie, we're not saying that we're not going to read it. We're just saying that
I'm going to read.
we're
I'll
going to
read
read
it
it
word
like
for
we
word.
do
Yes, I just
for everyone. Yeah.
right. I think the individual feels that we're not being transparent, that I'm not allowing First Amendment rights, that it's illegal, that I'm not doing it. I just want to make sure to check in on that situation. And
what policy are we pulling from that allows or doesn't allow someone to share their letter themselves?
yeah,
what's the policy that we're, because it seems to me that's a policy question. So do we have a published policy that says that the person's not? Michelle says yes.
Yes, I'm getting it. I don't have them all remembered by name, but it just essentially delineates that we can set specific guidelines for open forum, that, you know, that we establish what they are. And then
so
they didn't have any.
So we have somewhere in the minutes that we're currently only accepting forum letters by email that are read by the chair. We voted on that.
We send that, the chair sends that out in the announcement to the community that goes out to teachers and the parents and the whole community. I believe that's included in each time, the total number of time that we have and that we'll read them.
But we updated it not too long ago, Michelle, I thought, right? To include a discussion about how do we handle it during the pandemic. I thought I remember.
Yeah, I'm just looking for it.
Oh, sure.
yeah, that was from last year, I think.
Okay.
So guidance on that?
Jim, do you have any, like, do you remember the number of the policy? I'm looking, but I just, of course, just am.
I don't know the number of the policy. I know that that if there was something established, it wouldn't even necessarily be a policy. It would just be the board's guidelines for operating open forum. And I would suggest that no one's First Amendment rights are being infringed upon because the message is still being delivered.
Okay. Would you advise just reading the letter then, Jim?
If that's how you've if that's how you have operated this year, during open forum that everyone who wants to participate in open forum has their letter read, then that's how you operate.
Okay, great. All right, I will read the letter then. Here's a letter I wish to read personally during the open forum. Hello, MSA Board of Directors. For those of you who I have not had the pleasure to meet, my name is Wendell Slinton, and I am the Band and Orchestra Director here at MSA, as well as the Chair of Performing Arts Department and advisor to the theater. I wish to address the board, the staff, and the community on the board's recent decision to not renew the contract of the current director. I would like to start with something that has plagued my mind the last couple of weeks, and this is how the board could have possibly voted, and that is how the board could have possibly voted unanimously in favor of renewing our current director's contract. Over the last couple of weeks since the decision has been made, it is very evident that our teacher representatives do not truly reflect the views of the MSA staff, as a number of staff members have stepped forward in opposition to this decision. I cannot speak for everyone, but I can speak to what is being said as I share their views. Please know there are staff members who are concerned about their position here at MSA, like myself, if we speak out, which makes me question, is not one of the core values of MSA to foster a safe environment where everyone is heard and individuals are free to take risks. I question the intent of our teacher representatives as to why they would host a meeting for staff to voice their concerns about moving forward with hybrid after an onslaught of surveys, but yet they refuse to host a similar meeting in regards to the current issues. Both topics have just as much importance to the school and staff and should have been treated similarly. Which brings me to another core value. MSA will encourage students and staff to show respect for each other and their values. It comes to my attention that a resignation was submitted and will be read this evening. I am told that this resignation will touch upon these core values. Because of these issues, the board's action do not foster those core values. And yet you unanimously vote to not renew the current director's contract on the premise that they haven't shown growth in building culture and trust. So I ask as you, the board, not doing exactly what you've accused the director of doing. The next area I'd like to address is communication. Communication was also an area in which you state the director did not show improvement in reason for non-renewal. This poses a question. If the board unanimously voted to not renew, why was there not communication to the staff and to the community that the night of the vote about your unanimous decision and how you as a board plan to move forward? As publicly elected officials, it is your duty to be transparent to the community as possible. Your intent in this matter is not transparent. This is just one of many concerns about communication this board has issues with. I could refer to the sudden change in voting for board of director members, a shortened timelines as such as items as selecting a chair from the director search committee that both play into your decision to let current director go. How about not hosting a staff meeting to communicate the board intent as stated earlier? There isn't enough items to discuss all the concern in this limited 15-minute session you are allowing. Whereas the fairness, cooperation, integrity, and honesty, another core value of MSA not being met by this board. I would also like to address what was made at the April 15 special meeting. Member Kruger stated that he wanted to find the right director, and his explanation was he wanted to find a director who understood a community with racial injustice and economic turmoil. On the agenda today, in the renewal of a teacher contract who had been found to derogatory discriminate comments against students of color. This act of discrimination, especially by a teacher, is intolerant, and that teacher should be dismissed immediately. That being said, the community and staff are watching. We see you. Your actions speak louder than what you are actually saying. How you move forward in this vote will reflect greatly, not only on this school and the community, but at the end of you as an individual. Now I say to the teacher here on the board and to those of you watching, yes, MSA is a school of accelerated academics. Many teachers here think the accelerated academics means rigor, but rigor does not give anyone the right to discriminate race or ability. Our students cannot be well-rounded, lifelong learners and global citizens if the rigor we hold them to is not applied equitably. If our teachers are unwilling to adapt their curriculum to the needs of the students, we, the teachers, have failed, not the students. I thank you for your time, and I can only hope that the right decision will be made moving forward so we can heal as an MSA community and do what is not right, but what is best for our students. Okay. All right. And then I think, Dan, you had the other letter, if you'd like to address that. I know we're running a little over, but I think this is important.
Yeah, and how are we doing for time? We're just slightly over, yeah. So I guess the question, I got a letter from Judy, and I think it was sent out to the whole board, and Jim, I think you maybe have a copy too. Is there anyone who didn't see that letter? Just to maybe raise your hand. Because I'm debating for the interest of time too, if we read through all of it, but it was a summary of basically her position on the the issue of seating her for the board or not. Jim, I know we have this as a topic coming up later. Would it still make sense for me to read through the letter?
Well, I guess the question is whether it was submitted to the board to read in open forum, or if it was submitted to the board to consider as you're making the determination about whether to seat Ms. Seeberger.
I believe, Andy, it came to you to read at the board, and is that right? And I'm reading.
I think you had it. Let's see here.
I guess the one
No,
from
I think you were in there. The whole board was there. So
yep, and the one from Judy says this was sent to you in advance of tonight's board meeting.
it was sent to all of us. Yeah.
Yeah,
With this
and then
mail.
Andy, you asked to read it open forum. So I guess Judy wasn't clear on whether to read it for that or for, because I think it would be nice to have it, as a counterfact to your discussion, Jim, that we're going to have later. I mean, but
it's up to you.
Yeah, it was sent to everyone that said, with this email, please find my written response to the various legal opinions of Jim Martin. This is sent to you in advance of tonight's board. I don't think it was directed as an open forum, but if we want to read it now or then, I don't think it's here.
I'm happy to, I can speak on behalf, during the discussion point, which we have later.
Right. And I'm going to address, I'm going to acknowledge some of the points she's made in her letter and respond to them. So,
okay.
But I
not going to ignore it.
I think that's fair. Yeah, we're not ignoring it. And I think as long as we take it at that discussion point, we should have covered it. So.
All right. So we'll bring that up then. Does that sound good? All right.
Fine with it. Does anyone else have an issue with that? You guys okay with that? Okay.
All right. So we are going to go ahead and begin the approval of the minutes. So do I have a motion to approve on 5A, Board of Director Workshop and regular meetings, March 16th, 2021?
This is Adam, so moved.
Okay. Do I have a second?
This is
Rob,
Jennifer. I'll second.
Nope, Jennifer seconded it, not Rob. It was definitely Jennifer.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to roll call members. Dan Ellingston,
Yes.
Cody Schneid,
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski,
Yes.
Gina Albers,
Yes.
Adam Bartz,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas. That's yes. That's all yeses. Motion carries. I'd like to move item 5B, approval of minutes, Board of Directors Special Board Meeting, April 5th, 2021. Do I have a second?
Dan, I can second.
Okay. Go ahead and roll call vote. Dan Ellingston,
Yes.
Cody Schneid,
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski,
Yes.
Gina Alberts,
Yes.
Adam Bartz,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas. That is yes. All yeses, motion carries. I'd like to motion to approve 5C, Board of Directors Special Board Meetings, April 15th, 2021.
I'll second it. This is Cody.
I don't think I did it first, but
Oh. Then
you
I'll
first it.
And
Do I
will
have a second?
it.
Okay. I'll roll call vote. Dan Ellingston,
Yes.
Cody Schneid,
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski,
Yes.
Gina Albers,
Yes.
Adam Bartz,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas. That is yes. All yeses. Motion carries. All right. My chair's report is really, I'm not going to really have a chair report because we're going to be doing a stakeholder kind of wind up there with a bunch of us. So I'm going to go ahead and pass on that. Director's report, John.
Yes, thank you. The director's report is found on page 20, and there are several updates that I would like to make the board and the MSA community aware of. The first one is that the fighting calculators have qualified for the state FRC championships again this year. You can go to the MSA website and watch their home skills challenge. It's really fun. It's about a little over 2 minutes. So take some time and watch it. It's rather interesting. Moving down on my report, it has come to my attention that the original report that I submitted and the one that was sent out at 3:12 today is not there. It's been edited. So if you would like to have a unedited copy, which does not contain any personally identifiable information, feel free to email me and I'll send you a copy of it. I am very saddened to inform the MSA community that Judy Seeberger, MSA's COVID-19 coordinator and English language arts teacher, has submitted her letter of resignation. In keeping with MSA's tradition, I would like to read her letter of resignation. Dear Mr. Gabretsky, I hereby resign my position at MSA effective April 19th, 2021 at 3 p.m. I am truly sorry to be leaving this school, and I have many happy memories of my time here. However, I have grave concerns with regard to the direction MSA is headed, and I can no longer work for a school which does not put the needs of every student first. Teachers and board members who refer to special education students as anomalies, refuse to follow IEP and 504 plans, actively seek to exclude struggling students from their classrooms, and disproportionately refer students of color for disciplinary action have no place in public education. Yet, these individuals are now poised to control the interests of the school. These practices absolutely do not align with my teaching philosophy, and I cannot be a part of a system which actively works to marginalize students. I fear that the recent actions taken by the board, coupled with the intolerance and discrimination showed by those in power, will lead to the loss of many high qualified and talented teachers and staff at MSA. I, for one, cannot and will not work for leaders who do not recognize MSA as a public school and who do not put the needs of students above their own. I wish to thank you for your excellent leadership over the years, and I sincerely regret that I am unable to continue to serve the wonderful students of MSA. Sincerely, Judy Seeberger, teacher on special assignment, COVID-19 coordinator, ELA teacher. Due to Mrs. Seeberger's resignation and to keep COVID-19 protocols and contact tracing needs intact, the MSA administrators have adjusted their administrative duties so that we can continue to offer partial in-person instruction. Mrs. Froberg has agreed to take on many of the tasks of the COVID-19 coordinator while maintaining our activities program. Mr. Johnston will now oversee all student disciplinary issues, and I will be providing administrative oversight for our prom. This, however, leaves a hole in a few areas. Mrs. Seeberger's resignation will require that we rethink the administrative oversight of graduation. I'm offering our school board the opportunity to volunteer to assist the three administrators in this task. Can I count on your assistance?
I will most assuredly help in any way you need. I see a lot of them in my activities, so I can be a communication conduit. However you need so that we can keep graduation rocking, I will help.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Kurkowski.
I can also help. I would be glad to help.
All right, thank you, Mr. Barnum.
I can help too.
Fantastic. Many hands make light work. That's great to hear. Thank you. That's my report.
All right, thank you.
Can I go back to the earlier statement of having the unredacted portion sent out to any who request? I have a personal issue with that. The board asked specifically only for staff A, B, C, etc., and not any defining information, and people have already been identified. So I am personally very concerned about the unredacted portion going out. It shouldn't have gone out in the first place, and I'm sorry for the individuals who had to deal with that. So I am personally opposed to the unredacted version going out.
Duly noted.
And I did not adjust the unredacted as was told to me not too long ago. But, all right. Dan, do you have any comment on that also, since you dealt with the exchanges, or no? Okay.
No, just I think similar to Tina, I think we had a specific request. I don't know if we could call it confusion, but John, you and I had a chance to catch up this afternoon and basically shared that I think it made more sense if we had a slightly more, we'd call it unidentifiable version that went out. And I think we're in a kind of a weird spot, right? So as the board, we're not typically involved in this sort of administrative duties, right? We wouldn't want to be, and now we're kind of put onto ourselves because of the current situation that we have. So I think we all are trying to figure out the best way to move forward and how do we handle it. John, I feel like you're trying to do it from your side. I feel like from the board, we're also trying to protect the individuals and also this process. So I don't know. I guess I feel like let's continue to work together the best that we can.
Mm-hmm.
You know, keep it civil and also professional, and that's where I guess I would leave it. So as long as we can look as united as possible over these coming months, I think that's going to put MSA in the best foot forward. So.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think working with that is fine. I will state, though, that certain behaviors, no matter what they are behaviors that should not be tolerated. And I believe I put in the information that we shared. We had talked earlier about how in our phone call anyway, Dan, about how that a lot of that information is not, there is not anything in there that's personally identifiable unless you happen to be that particular person or shared information that was in there with somebody else and that other person is now aware of it. Yeah. And that I can't help. I mean, as an employee, you're always free to talk about your individual situation. That's your right to do so, but that doesn't mean that information, the person that it's shared with can then turn around and say, well, I can identify that person. Well, the only reason you can is because whoever was the subject of that behavior has shared it with you. The general public cannot identify these people. They would have no idea who they are.
Yeah, I think that's also true, John. I think you're right. I think we're just trying to protect all of those individuals.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And while staying transparent to the public as well.
Yep, which we also need to balance. And normally these things wouldn't necessarily be brought out to a board meeting, right? You would have handled them as an administrator and they would have been taken care of that way, right? It just came out this year because of the particular unique situation we have. I guess let's try our best to kind of tone it down, because I think we had a lot of emails and probably frantic phone calls that weren't necessary over the past few days. So I don't know, let's just work together as we move forward and see how we can get this. Because I think one of the topics is tonight we have this very topic to talk through. Right. So let's take it there.
Yes, and I would agree, because typically this is handled very discreetly. I don't know if the board is aware of it, but I've non-renewed several employees, and I don't think anybody is even aware of it. So it's handled much differently, but because of the board's request for this year, I've provided that information.
Yeah. In this case, not to get into the last word, but I mean, it makes sense for the board to kind of look after the school's interest, right? I mean, because we have a lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts, and that's when we're kind of digging our hand into a particular function of the administration that we wouldn't normally do. But so bear with all of us as we try to sort through this uncharted waters, if you will. At least I know I'm not a professional in this particular area. So, okay. So yeah, I don't know any other comments, Michelle?
Mine is one, but it's relatively minor. But John, would you be willing on your director's report? Greta Hansen isn't a senior, she's a sophomore. Would you be willing to? Yeah,
yes,
it's even more,
yes.
her achievement is even more remarkable because she's a super awesome sophomore and she still has some room to keep rocking her awesome self in all of her extracurriculars, but just in case, so that if anybody else were to read it and then was looking at the graduating class, I just want to make sure she has.
No, that is a good point. And so if Greta or her parents are listening, I'm sorry, I apologize for that. It is a really remarkable accomplishment. So kudos to her. Thanks for catching that.
Children grew up way too fast in the first place. No need to accelerate it.
That's true.
I'm sorry, I'm still bothered. The board never asked for that specific information to be listed out. And so I still have a problem with it being okay like that. So that's me. I just need to voice it.
All right. Student Paula, lift our spirits here. Student rep update.
So I'm a part of the Student Advisory Council, and right now we're collaborating with some teachers and the counselors on some projects that will be student focused. But yeah, that's the only update that I have, that we're working on some projects that we'll hopefully see this year or next year.
All right. Thank you, Paula. All right, we'll go through the reports again as we've done before. We'll go ahead and just ask if there's any questions until we get to finance. So does anyone have any questions for Ms. Kurkowski on academics? All right. Does anyone have any questions on annual fund with with Adam Bartz? Does anyone have any questions in communication? By the way, I don't know who takes your notes. Maggie, who takes the notes for communication?
Teresa Ward.
Holy cow, they're like spotless. Communication with Ms. Burgraff. Any questions? Any questions for me in personnel? School expansion possibilities for Mr. Ellingston? And policy.
When are we going to talk about some of those things? Is that on a future agenda?
Yeah, good question, Rob. I think on the discuss annual stakeholder meeting, I was going to give a little update, or should I talk about it now? You have a question?
I just mean there's quite a bit of stuff going on there. I think we should, other than just read about it, what's really happening? What are the next steps? Who should be involved? How are you getting people involved? There's just
great question.
A lot going on.
And I think you're right. And I think it's something that I was talking to John about, I think last week, John, when we went through with Mr. Vang, was like, how do we make sure that we can get this information out in front of other folks even more so? Because I think, to be honest, Rob, we were plugging along at meetings and kind of making some, slow but steady progress. But within the past month or so, I feel like we're really kind of turning the corner and really accelerating some of this progress. So to answer your question, you're going to see a lot more coming out soon. And we asked so without going through all the details and taking all the limelight here, we've made such progress that I think we're going to have something to be able to share with the broader community soon and get some feedback on kind of where our thoughts are. And before we make any big decisions, right? We're going to be checking back in again with the MSA community. So I think right now what we're doing is we're still doing a little bit of investigative work, right? Probably the biggest question is what can be done at our current site. So the building representative, if you will, that we've tasked to work with so far. I haven't had to come to Cody and ask for any money because he's doing this pro bono. And he's also asking an architect that he has relationships with to do some kind of pro bono work for us so we can get some visuals and whatnot, based on the mathematics of what we've said, how many people we need and those sorts of things. So I think within the coming month or two, Rob, we should be in a better spot where, and Annie on our monthly kind of board update, if you will, from the board chair and myself, I'd like to maybe hijack a sentence or two in there just to make sure we keep something, maybe even expansion update out ahead of folks, right? So people can kind of check in on that, because they're not going to go out to the MSA website and read through all these notes, most likely, right?
Okay.
Would it make sense? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Michelle.
Would the expansion committee, would it be possible to have under the About MSA dropdown to have a section, a new section that says expansion, so you could put some highlights or any, just have a space where people could see kind of what's happening, any highlights or things coming up?
That's a good idea, Michelle. And I don't think we can over communicate it. I didn't have much to share in the previous months, but I think we're getting there. So now it would make sense to have that out in front of folks. And once we get some of these visuals, I think that's really going to sink in for people that, they heard the word, but it doesn't mean anything, at least to me, until I see it, right? So what it could look like. So do I work with you on that one or with Justin, or who's got the communication?
Justin's the webmaster.
Yeah, so that would be communications committee. So send Heather Crisco is in charge of it, but I'm the board rep, so we can figure it out and get it to Justin and figure out the tab and everything, the best place for it.
Sounds good. Thank you. Good idea.
All right. How about policy with Ms. Kurkowski? Any questions on that? Okay. So Cody, I'm going to let you move this in and talk about it. You're always the one who does that.
Okay. One update I want to make you all aware of. I know we talked about it at the board finance trading. On our balance sheet, we now have a line that's cash and investments restricted or required for bond compliance. So that's basically setting aside the cash we need to meet requirements to give us a better understanding of how much is spendable. And
so come again, Cody.
So we have to have a certain amount of cash on hand to make our bond requirements, our bond covenants. So we figured out what that dollar amount is, and we have it on a separate line item, so that if you look on page 55, the first line on the balance sheet is cash and investments unrestricted. And then the next one down is cash investments required for bond compliance.
So 55, maybe your 55 is different than my 55. So
I'm going off the packet I got today.
Yeah, me too. Huh. Oh, maybe the 55 goes the other way. Bottom up. Okay, I found it. Right.
Cody.
So it's only right. Okay, good. So it's roughly $1 million. And so that comes back to my question. What is with that $1.4 million of unrestricted? Because I was asking that question several months ago, and I really appreciate you pointing this out, right? Because I didn't believe we needed whatever the $2+ million for bond compliance. $1 million makes sense to me. So what is earmarked for that 1.4 million?
A good chunk of it is we don't get cash payments evenly throughout the year, so we have more cash than we've spent yet, but is marked to be spent with the budget.
What? That doesn't. Really?
Can you repeat that? Say that one more time, please.
Not all of our cash is received equally throughout the year. Sometimes we just get a big chunk of it, and then we use that to pay our expenses throughout the year. So some of that money has been basically, that's already, like, it's budgeted to be spent the rest of the year. because we won't necessarily get equal payments for the rest of the fiscal year.
I'll have to do some digging, but I appreciate that, Cody. That helps a lot.
I have a question, Cody, about on page 53 and 58, it talks about preliminary surplus of 488,000. What is that money for? Is that where we can spend it any way we want, or what's the surplus mean?
Just a second, which I'm looking for. Page
53, preliminary surplus.
Basically of that 1.38 million that's on the balance sheet on 55 currently, basically that's what should be left over at the end of the year.
To use at our discretion?
Within reason, I'd guess, yeah.
Does that include COVID money or not COVID money?
I'm not 100% confident in this answer, but most of our COVID money has been spoken for, so I'm gonna guess that's without COVID money.
So where is the breakdown of how we spend our COVID money?
I don't think I have a document in here that has broken that down.
That would be important, especially now that our COVID liaison quit as of today. Then it seems to me that we have extra budget money available to answer to what the teachers are talking about, the fact that they have to take PTO because we can't afford substitute teachers, where we've got, I mean, again, I'm not exactly sure what's going on here, but I need a lot more answers than we've got. So, and I assume this is where we talk about that. But if we've got, I want a breakdown of exactly how much COVID money we got and what we spent it on and how we spent it and how much is available and how we could get substitutes for when teachers are sent home to quarantine when they're not sick so that they can't teach. I mean, none of this is making any sense to me. And I'm really disappointed how this has gotten to this far and we're just finding out about it. And that's, I'm not saying that has anything to do with the finance committee other than I'm charging the finance committee to help us figure out where we are sitting financially truly with this COVID money and how we can spend it in this area.
I will email our Dustin and see if we can get a breakdown of the COVID money account.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Cody.
Yep. Mine's unrelated. Do you guys have a related one? I'm sorry, my dog too. I was just curious on the solar panel one, your page 49. I saw 5-year payback.
At the time of the meeting last Monday, I just started research. I've seen quotes of 5-year paybacks for solar panels. I've done some research. Some I'm seeing 10 years, some it's even less if you get the right grants. So I've just started the process, but I know we may be moving in 5 years. So depending on what I find, it may not be feasible.
Well, find out what you can. When I've looked for my own house, the payback was always much longer than that. So I would love to hear what you find out, because maybe there's some other options. And then I think you're also wise to think, right? I mean, if these solar panels are installed on our old building, if we don't use that building, then it's not worth it perhaps. So.
Yeah, and I'm getting quotes, building A and building B separate, so we can, if we decide an expansion that we keep building B and tear down A and rebuild, we can explore that option too.
Great.
Michelle.
I wanted to know if there was any update with regard to the class of 2020 and the funds that the graduation funds. I just wanted, is there any, I know that the financials are behind, so I don't know if this is representing current or not. I just wanted to check in about that.
I can speak to that. The money has been returned. John found where the error was in the coding, and he has taken care of it, and we are in good shape. Thank you for asking, Michelle.
All right, Cody, did you want to start the approval of the financials? Or?
Let me quick just, I want to publicly acknowledge John for doing that. I really appreciate that.
So to clarify for everybody, it was not, the intention was not to take the money from them. It was just coded wrong in our budgeting software, in our accounting software. And with that, I'd like to motion to approve the financials for March.
This is Gina. I will second.
All right, let's go ahead and roll call vote then. Dad Anlingston,
Yes.
Cody Schneip,
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski,
Yes.
Tina Albers,
Yes.
Adam Barth,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas. Yes, that's all yeses. Motion carries. All right, now we've moved the consent agenda item. Rob, my expert, tell me, these are the little fuzzy parts, what I'm doing with this one, because we've moved it then out of the consent agenda.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, so we'll be down to old or unfinished business. I think at this time, I'm gonna hand it over to Jim at this time. Do we want to read the letter first?
Well, with the resignation of Ms. Seeberger as of 3 o'clock this afternoon, I'm not even sure that this matter needs to be taken up by the board. She's not an employee, not employed as a teacher. And so I'm not even certain that this matter needs to be taken up by the board.
I think my biggest worry is there was just thoughts of us illegally acting. Can you just speak to that as far as keeping her, having her not be on the board because of her teacher status? Could you at least speak to that?
Yeah. Let me just turn on my camera here. Sorry. Can't start the video for some reason. Well, I'm sorry. My video's not working for some reason. But I'll say that Ms. Seeberger has asserted that the board was engaged in illegal activity and was opening itself up to significant liability for its failure to seat her on the board. And as you saw in the letter that I provided, the opinion letter that I provided to the board, someone who is seated on the board as a teacher has to be someone who's in a position for which a license is required by the state. And I went through the details of that. And I would suggest that the board's determination to first accept her leave of absence last fall and appoint someone to fill in for her while she was on leave was appropriate. And I would also submit that the determination that the position that she held until her resignation as of today was not a position for which a license is required by the state. So she was not technically a teacher for purposes of being placed on the board, being a teacher representative on the board. I don't know what exposure to liability she suggests the board would be facing by not seating her, but I would suggest that the board would have greater exposure to liability if it seated someone who's clearly an unauthorized teacher to be seated on the board. It could call into question the passage of resolutions upon which she votes. Those would be some issues that the board could be facing. It would call into question your contract with your authorizer, which requires that the MSA board comply with the charter school statute in all aspects. So as you read my letter, my opinion letter, and then as you review Ms. Seeberger's letter, I would submit that there would be a greater risk to the board to not seat Ms. Seeberger in her, what was currently her position, as opposed to seating her under the questionable circumstances of her not being a teacher.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments? All right, Jim, thank you very much. This was something the authorizer did want, you to help speak to, is to come here and with, answer to this part. So I really appreciate you coming in. And that's it. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. All right, let's get on to our discussion and of the annual stakeholder meeting. Again, we're in a pandemic, so the last couple of years have been a little bit different. So I'd like to just open up, and then I've asked a few other people to talk about their areas of where they've contributed over the last year. So I'm going to start here that we are ranked from US News for high school, #1 high school in Minnesota. I think we're #1 middle school, but I couldn't find that right away. I know we are with the niche, but we're the number 32 charter school in the United States. We're number 124 best high school in the United States. We are 75% of our high school students took at least one AP exam. In the top 50 schools in the nation, our middle schools, grades 7 and 8, ranked #3. Niche 2020 rankings of Math and Science Academy, #1 of 429 best high schools in Minnesota, #1, 386 best middle schools in Minnesota, and we're the #1 high school in Minnesota. AP and PSO information, the report card was the average ACT score for 2020 for MSA was #1 in the state, and average composition score for MSA for 2020 was 28.3. So and I was going to go back and count all the board meetings we had, but I thought, that's really not smart. I don't think we want to know that. This was a lot this year with COVID and on. All right, I'm going to give Maggie a chance to speak to the OLL group.
So online learning as an option is something a group of us have been looking at as either supplemental and or a full-on expansion. Supplemental is probably the best way to start. We met with Jeff Playman from MDE last week on Thursday and had a whole bunch of questions prepared for him prior to that meeting. He was so kind and answered them all for us, and just his suggestions, what other schools have done. You have to apply for this process, what that takes. There's still a lot of things left to discuss before we even get to that. Things such as how we want it to be graded. If it's supplemental, how does that look? What the course offerings are. Do you start really small and expand? There's a lot to go on there, but it's really exciting. And there's a lot of great options, especially when we talk about expanding and getting some money without having to have a footprint down of a building.
Great, thank you so much. All right, Dan, you did talk a little bit about that. Anything else on expansion? Any other items?
Yeah, if I could just put it in the bigger picture. So I think one of the things that's really hit home with this expansion is this tour I took last week, John, together with you and some others on the expansion committee. And I was just so impressed with how much we've done, Annie, as you've mentioned, as a community, given what we have, the resources we have. And the two examples that stuck out for me was our sizes of classrooms are 1/2 to 1/3 what they should be. 1/2 to 1/3. So it's hard to put your head around that, but the building representative was almost laughing at how we were able to cram in. So yeah, creative, but this is not what we need, right? We need more space. The other one was I got a chance to see some of the track folks practice, which is fantastic to see people practicing again, even with some of the, wearing the masks and everything, but they were doing it outside on the sidewalk or in our storm drain, on the side, because we don't have, I'm not judging, I'm just saying, I don't think they had a better spot to do it at. So they're doing it where they could. And so when we talk expansion, yes, we need to expand based on the numbers and how it works in Minnesota, as it does in other states. You need to grow in order to kind of keep your school, functioning and covering the cost and all that. Yes, but we also just need more space. So I think what we did, and Rob, to your point, and I haven't done a very good job of communicating clearly, is we took wish lists from teachers, from parents, from students. So that's all been compiled. We did school visits. When I had a chance to go to a St. Croix Prep, absolutely drooled over that facility. I mean, in terms of green space, brand new, what we could have. I mean, these are the sort of pictures that I think we need to get out in front of the community. Once we know, Cody, we can afford it, but I'm anxious to see what we can afford. And then we have interviewed quite a few developers. So what we did was we kind of did our first blush, if you will, with the developers. Do we feel like we're a good fit with these guys? And we've actually chosen one, not that we've chosen based on who's going to build our building, but we've chosen kind of a representative that had very good recommendations. The name kept coming up again and again when we had different discussions. John's worked quite closely with them as well. And John's been a big part of getting us to the point where we are here today with this expansion. So I would say we're getting to a part where we can kind of have some concrete sort of stuff. The biggest question we have is what can we do at our current site? Ideas like, do we buy instead of lease some of those other buildings? Do we tear down stuff? Do we expand up? All of those sorts of questions are still out for us to discover. And then we'll come back probably in the coming months to say, what can we do with our current space? And does that meet our needs, or do we need to look elsewhere? So, and at that point, that's a pretty big decision that will involve everybody, right? I mean, with the whole community, because I mean, if we change our location, that's going to have implications for work, the staff, for the student, everything. So we're not going to take these decisions lightly or just be done in a void. It'll be done out in the open. So questions for that one? But exciting times for MSA.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Cody, some of the wonderful things we've gone through with finance this year.
So one thing I just want to start off personally. I am working on my master's degree and taking a nonprofit finance course this semester. We're wrapping up, and I have had great success in the class because I have a real organization to frame assignments off of. And I've even taken one of the things was the solar panels. So I'm actually trying to apply that to the actual organization and not just keep it in an academic setting. As far as things the committee has done this year, I think our biggest was refinancing our bonds on building A and B. I believe our annual savings on the interest payments is about $120,000 a year, and that money is being set aside. I know, Rob, you'll want to know exactly this. That is still being set aside for repairs and maintenance as the buildings age. And if there happens to be money left over, if we sell the properties and move, that will kind of be maybe some seed money for new spaces, or help us there if it does not need to be used for repairs and maintenance on the buildings. I think that's the majority of what I'd like to report.
All right. And Michelle was on the COVID liaison, or the COVID team, I mean, the COVID committee. So just the partial in person, and here we are. Now we have kids in the classroom, just to give a wrap on that.
Definitely. And then I think, John, you'll have to correct me because I started at meeting 2, which was in October, but I think was meeting 1 late September? Yeah, okay. And so the group started off first late September, early October, trying to take feedback from families about what options were. The idea of having more of a flex day on Friday, the Win Fridays, looking at the plans itself. We have parent members and community members who have combed over and edited and proofread documents. And so they've worked to get information out to the community, worked on getting feedback about different kinds of survey questions, and worked to try to keep everything updated when a lot of the information we used is updated regularly as well. So the committee has been working really hard to kind of regularly meet, address any new things that have come up with CDC, anything that came up from Department of Health, Minnesota Department of Education, adapt the plan for those things, and still seek community and student and teacher feedback. And we're going to continue to do that as well. And so hopefully, I understand that an undertaking like trying to plan all of those moving parts, we didn't plan them all ourselves, we're just trying to assemble them. And I feel like, you know, we've done a really good job of trying to catch a moving target, definitely.
All right, well, that will wrap up the stakeholder meeting. Hopefully we bring some community members in next year and have something like that. All right, we're on to the approval of the item 12B, approval of the 2021-2022 school calendar. So I'd like to motion to approve the 2021-22 calendar. Do I have a second?
This is Maggie. I will second.
Any discussion on that?
Just a comment on Labor Day. It looked like we're starting before Labor Day again this year, and then it looked like we start and then we stop. We take Friday off. Is it because of just the sheer number of days and where Labor Day falls? I think I asked the question last year, but normally we start after Labor Day, but why are we doing it again this year before?
I don't think any of us were on the calendar committee. John was, I think.
Yeah, Dan, I can talk to that. The 8:33 starts on the 23rd as well. So we kind of mirror a lot of what they do because of busing.
Yep.
And they do not have busing on that Friday.
But then we start early. Is it just because of the numbers where we have to squeeze them in?
Yes. Yep.
Because it just seemed like, boy, it would be nice if we could push it back 2 days and not start and then stop and then start again. Yeah.
I would say though, pedagogically, it's kind of nice to have 2 4-day weeks to get the kids started. I mean, there is something about 5 days and then the weekend, and you know what I mean? There is some benefits to that couple 4-day weeks to begin with. Get them feeling.
And I'm sorry, Rob. And to kind of piggyback on that, the middle school especially, those first 2 weeks, it's a transition for them, especially the 6th graders. And this coming school year, you're really going to have 2 classes that haven't been on campus, the 6th grade and most of the 7th grade. So you're going to want to have a little additional transition time at the beginning of the school year. Of course, we're assuming everybody's in person, so that they have that opportunity to really get acclimated before they jump into the academics, because it does take, in a normal year, it takes a good 2 weeks for the middle school to get acclimated. And by breaking it up initially with a bunch of shorter weeks, it will hopefully, we won't know until we do it, of course, but it will help the students transition. Now, the high school students, it's a little different story, but for the middle school students, it should pay a lot of dividends as you get into the school year later in September and October.
Okay, sounds like a lot of thought went into it.
All right, let's go ahead and vote on that. Dan Ellingston?
Yes.
Cody Schneid?
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski?
Yes.
Gina Albers?
Yes.
Adam Bartz?
Yes.
Robert Kruger?
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle?
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff?
Yes.
Annie Cardenas? That's yes. It's all yeses. Motion carries. All right, review of the handbook. Anything there on the handbook for review?
There was only one thing with regard to the handbook, and I feel terrible that I didn't see it earlier, but just as, remember when we were redoing the communications policy and we had the flow chart for communication, above that policy, we added in the specific delineated steps. And I emailed communications as well about having that be on our website where it says who to contact and have the flow chart, but not like who to contact first, second, third, fourth. I think because we have that same flow chart in the handbook, I think we should still have those same steps right above it. But I emailed John and he didn't think that it's like a substantive change. So it's just adding the same thing from the policy, but just trying to get those two things together in as many places as they appear. That was the only additional change or suggestion that I had.
I just have a question, a generic question, and the fact that we felt that there were some problems with this handbook last year. are we comfortable that this was where it needs to be? How is it different than last year? How did the process go different? Why is this? Because I seem to remember that there were several problems with different handbooks over the past year, things not getting updated. Are we satisfied?
Well, I think the staff handbook last year came in June, so before we even got seated. That's why contracts kind of ran late. So I think there was a lot fixed there. I think the other one you're talking about might be the parent-student handbook that was in August. So those are two different handbooks, Rob.
Yeah, I understand. I just thought that there was a problem with the staff handbook, but maybe that was just the lateness of it or something. So just want to make sure that we're not sweeping something under the rug here.
I was on the handbook last year and I do not remember there being any big issues communicate with the task force, and same with this year. Not to say that it didn't happen, but I don't remember it myself.
Are you thinking about the contracts, Rob? How we asked for different versions of the contracts and then it wasn't what we wanted? And that is what kind of pulls back to the handbook?
In the evaluations, we were talking about how the staff handbook was one of many, and I know there was problems with the athletic stuff and other things, but I thought the staff was one of them. So I just wanted to make sure we revisit it, that we don't get to summer again and say, oh, those handbooks just, because parents were pointing out errors in the handbooks. When I first started here, parents were pointing out errors, and that's what I'm trying to avoid, is that parents are saying, look, you guys didn't do your jobs again. And so that's why I'm trying to bring it up. And this may not have been one of those.
No, this one isn't. This one was a little bit delayed last time. And I think there was only a couple of things that that the staff shared. Just, little tweaks or just language clarifications that just slowly come up over the year, like, oh, that's not super clear and things like that. So there wasn't a ton that really needed massive updating. Last year took a little bit to get the final draft of a couple of conflict resolution items and things like that. It was a little delayed. But this year there weren't any major shifts or changes with it, but some clarification of language for sure.
Thank you.
I had a question just because I'm not familiar. I saw the transfer of PTO, page 94. Is that process work okay for folks? I saw just some minor tweak and change, but I just want to make sure that, because I can envision maybe some teachers get pressured if somebody needed some PTO, but if everyone's comfortable with that, then that sounds like a nice benefit, if you will, because I'm not familiar with being able to give someone else my PTO. Okay.
I can give you a little bit of background about that. I had a colleague whose wife was dying, and she ended up passing away about, I think it was with a couple weeks left in the school year, but he had exhausted his PTO and he had exhausted FMLA, and they didn't have the option of donating time to him as a staff. So he had to go back for the 2 weeks, for that last 2 weeks after his wife passed away. And like the students knew she passed away, they were sad for him. And and when I was looking at ours, I didn't see any, and I don't think anybody would be denied it, but we had introduced it with this idea that it's an option to have. And if you never need to use it, or if you never want to donate it, that's totally fine. But then you have the ability to do so.
Good.
Just clearly delineated.
Good.
So Michelle, this is a discussion, and Gina, this discussion on the board, and then we approve it next month with contract. Is that how that works? Or do we approve it this?
Last year it was approved later because we received it later. But if we're going through, right now we just have it as a discussion. We can, if you want to, John, does it make it easier to have it approved with amended, since I did make a suggestion of a language change? Does it make it easier to approve with amended so that at least some of the contracts and things can start to be drafted? Does that affect that timeline?
Well, the contracts specify that the handbook, it's referred to in the contract. So in order for an employee to sign their contract, it's very advantageous to have a staff handbook done so you can give that to them. at the time of signing the contract rather than, well, the staff book will be coming, and they don't know what's in it, or there may be a change that they don't agree with that's put in. So having it approved tonight with that one change that you sent, if everybody's comfortable with that, would be very helpful in the process of extending contracts.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought as well, because I'm pretty sure, yeah, we receive that signature page when we sign our contracts and things like that. So myself, I would say, and everybody can disagree with me, obviously, perfectly fine. I would say just to approve with the proposed change, and if you want, it's policy 103 where we delineated that right above that graphic organizer. So I would say maybe approve pending change. We can then still have it as a consent item possibly next meeting just for formal approval. But then if we do that, then John and the business manager, like they can start getting that process going. It's not delayed until May to really even get started. I mean, I feel we've approved things pending change just to allow them to continue move forward in the past, especially if it's non-substantive.
But then, Michelle, could we just approve it, or?
I think we can, but I think because the document is different, you still need to see the final doc. I think you could just have it be a consent, like we approved it, and then I can just include the final version with that language added for board review, just so that you have what that final statement is.
I like that idea.
All right.
So so approve it tonight with a review next month.
Yeah, I think, can we just put it as consent, or just I can send it out to the board members to review? I can give you the exact phrasing from the policy I'm thinking of. I know I sent it to you and I should just look at my sent emails, but dang it, my computer's being slow.
Right. Because if you don't approve it tonight, it would have to wait until next month.
I feel we need to approve something.
Yeah, that's my fear.
It was brought up that the handbook was late last year.
Yeah, and the language I'm referencing is the purpose statement for policy 103. Dictates like contact first, second, third, fourth, fifth, like the actual order of contact, and we've added it in to other places where we have that communications flow chart. And so I just thought we should add it in with the staff one as well. So it's in the parent one already, and it's in the policy already. So if you're looking at policy 103, it just has the language we discussed about, who should you contact first, second, third, delineated as part of the purpose statement of the policy. And that was from January of this year that we delineated that.
Should we move to approve and then put on consent agenda? Is that the basic feeling here?
I think so. If we we can do a consent agenda. Gina, you're a lot better with Roberts than me. Can we do a consent agenda item that doesn't need an official vote, but just a consent agenda that's a review or like an old business?
I guess if we're approving it tonight, I don't even know why I'd have to go on consent agenda.
Okay.
To be honest, next time.
Right. My understanding is we can approve it and then we can change, as John said, things that are just clarification. We're not changing policy by adding that piece. And so I think we approve as is. And so I motion to approve this staff handbook as distributed with the non-substantive changes forthcoming.
I can second. This is Dan.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right. Go ahead and roll call vote. Dan Ellingston,
Yes.
Cody Schneid,
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski.
Yep.
Gina Albers,
Yes.
Adam Bartz,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas. Yes. It's all yeses, motion carries. All right. So let's see, we have on the next one, approval of annual budget on 12D. So I move to approve the annual budget for the fiscal year 2022. Do I have a second?
Cody will second.
All right. Any discussion on that item?
I do want to address a couple things. I did not make this budget. Dustin with our, I can't remember the name of the company, but they help with our finances. He made the projection. He did base it more off of last year's data, and he didn't include a lot of this year's data because this, year has been so weird. That making projections off of this year's data would probably not be very accurate. And then the numbers for salaries, it did put a starting wage of the new director or the interim director at $100,000.
Can I ask what the staff raise is? Cost of living percentage?
Yes,
Was that in there? I'm sorry if I didn't see it.
Does that sound right, Cody?
I don't know if it was specifically posted, but we do have a matrix that is used for that. And I know the cost of livings are, I know they specifically spent a day making sure that particular data line was accurate. Yes, 2%. It's at the page 141. A line that says inflation assumption.
Any other discussion items or clarity needed?
Just a comment. We don't have expansion in here. So this is kind of growing at the current site. And the numbers, right? I mean, they keep growing up in terms of students, but the building won't be able to accommodate that. So I think towards the end of this, that it's not accurate, which I'm not faulting anyone. It's just something to change, right?
Well, yes, we have expansion to look at, and I guess we have two different options: expansion in a new site, or as Maggie has brought up, expansion online. So, yeah, I at some point, at the very least, we have those. I think it was on page 138. There was a list of our expected student headcount. So that part I think will be helpful for expansion committee.
Yep, and I guess my thought is that our wish list is larger than these numbers, and that's because we're limited on space, right, and teachers and everything else. But assuming we had the actual space to accommodate the additional wish list students, our hope should be that we can expand to accommodate even more, right? But yeah.
I think I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Annie, it sounded like you were muted, so.
No, I was just seeing if any other discussion and trying to move it along, but I'm cool.
I think my only question is just with regard to our current facilities, realistically, in which of these years are we really going to be pushing our physical space? Because I know we're tight, and that's always been kind of an issue. So with regard to expansion and the kind of timeline, the comfort timeline for the students in the everyday, it's one thing to see these numbers on a page, but it's another thing to have a certain number of kids just crammed in every day. They can barely move. So realistically, looking at numbers, where do we see as our we're actually impacting the students' physical comfort in the rooms at this point?
I think we're over, Michelle. No, but when I saw the configuration, I'm not faulting anyone. We got creative with the space that we had, but our numbers for our classrooms, John, were 400 square feet. I mean, they varied. The developers are saying we should be in the 800 to 1,000 square foot per classroom. And the classroom sizes are not too dissimilar. And some of those were charter schools. So I think we're over. We've gotten good value out of our current setup. And as soon as we can expand, I think we should. That's my answer to that question, is not how can we fit 600 kids into a 400 kid school. I think the problem is we're already over. Everybody needs more space. We need green space. We need practice space. We need space to move and breathe. COVID limited us this year too, because we didn't have space to pass in the hallways. So I feel like we need the space. I don't think people are going to argue with that. And the people have been very accommodating. We're in Minnesota. We do Minnesota nice, and we accommodate. But we should be in a bigger space already.
Gotcha. That was kind of what I was wondering. I've taught I think I'm in my 5th room now, and it's interesting how you Tetris some of the spaces, some of the different rooms. I was in the cave and stuff like that. So just wanted to see if some of my perceptions reflected what you all had looked at and touring with people that are contractors, if they kind of had that same perception.
I would just make one comment, and I think our science is okay. I mean, we have quite nice science rooms, some of the bigger science rooms, and they commented on that too. So it's not a blanket statement, it's not fair, but some of the classrooms we saw were quite compressed, and it would be nice to get them bigger, right?
All right. So shall we vote on the annual budget? All right. Dan Ellingston,
Yes.
Cody Schneip,
Yes.
Michelle Krakowski,
Yes.
Gina Albers,
Yes.
Adam Bartz,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas. It's all yeses, and motion carries. All right, I just wanted to discuss, a staff member brought up, just discussing board in-person meetings and how we felt about that. I know we can't really be in the same room without wearing masks. So that's one thing. And so I just thought I would throw that out there. If there's a timeline people think, if you feel it should be sooner, or if we should wait till the pandemic numbers come in, or whatever you feel. How do you, just a discussion on it.
I like it in spirit, but I don't want to see what we had at the very beginning where we had multiple people in one room and you hear the mics going and all of that kind of is worse than what we have right now, in my opinion. Right now, at least I can hear people and I can see them. So I don't know if we come up with a solution where we can have some people in person, but it needs to address that audio visual kind of quality aspect of it too. So whatever that solution is.
There was one meeting where I brought in my personal equipment to kind of capture everybody on video and had a single microphone in the center of the room. I think, to Dan's point, it should be all or nothing, because you do run into a technical problem if you have even one person who is phoning into the meeting. You're going to get feedback on the microphone unless everybody is sitting at their own computer, which will just run into the same problems that we had earlier in the pandemic as well.
For me, I would be concerned about the unknown amount of people that could show up in a room and keeping that safe and still sending it out to the community. So for me, I would rather stick to Zoom for now and wait for those numbers to continue to go down or the emergency order be lifted.
Yeah, I do think it's driven by the emergency order and vaccination. I think it's only 25% of adults right now are vaccinated. So we still have a lot of unvaxxed people out there at this time. I mean, this is something we can discuss, and then maybe, when things get lifted, we can revisit, but I just didn't know how the board felt in general.
Just an idea. The city has gone back, city of Woodbury has gone back, haven't they? Are they in person and somehow maybe they have a better setup than us, but I'm just trying to think, if we had something, it would, to Gina's point, it needs to be safe for everyone. So, but we need to have it where the board members could speak freely and maybe without masks. So that means we need space. And then if the public wants to come in, I would ask that they wear masks, but then they also need to be safe, right? So I don't want to have to shout to one microphone, Adam, to your point. I think that's our biggest way of transmitting is people singing or shouting tends to be the way that we end up getting this virus from one person to another, right? I guess I'm just spitballing some ideas, but I can see a way where we can do it, but it's not as simple as the hybrid solution that we've come up with school, where we've offered some folks to go and some not, based on their choice. If we do it that way, I'm afraid that the board meeting is going to kind of descend into chaos a little bit, audio technical wise, right? So.
Did you want to put a time frame maybe to revisit it then at that point, or like in a couple months, or new change of board, or?
Is there an expiration date on the whatever thing is allowing us to meet remotely?
Emergency order.
I don't even know what to call it. Law. Yeah, emergency order.
I think he's getting them signed. I think it's when they say it's okay. I don't think with the pandemic, I don't think there's a clear, I think it's Michelle, is it every 6 months the emergency order gets signed, or every 3, or?
I'm trying to look at I'm looking at end of peacetime emergency definition from the Minnesota Department of Health right now. Yeah, it periodically comes up, but it's not every 6 months. It's less than that. Shoot. But when he has his, he can renew it, and then they can do a super vote to override it. Emergency executive. I just keep getting City of St. Paul emergency executive orders, but they're every month. So some element of that is monthly. Well, what if we just had it as a generic workshop item that we put on for the next couple of months? Just review and assess.
That's a good idea. And I guess my question would be, what are we missing? So like when we switched to this Zoom one, of course, the face-to-face, but what are we really missing? It's open forum would be one where folks would be able to come in and present in person. That's one thing that we're missing. So I guess the students had a choice, or the parents with the students, to decide whether or not they're going to send their kids. I think the board should be offered the same. Decide whether or not you want to go in person, or you have a medical reason you want to stay back, or whatever that case may be. But I'm wondering, what are we missing by doing the board the way we're doing it right now? I mean, we've been functioning, if you will, this way. I haven't actually met I think just recently I've met some of you guys in person, right? Which is a little bit funny, but that's the world we live in today. So what are we missing? Is there anything else that would drive us to a quicker decision to meet in person?
Kind of the reverse. I'm wondering for our community, and this isn't me saying I'm opposed to going to meet back in person. It's not. I'm excited to meet with all of you again. But I do believe that if we look at our numbers, and if we ask Mr. Gehring about it, we may have a greater participation for our live streamed meetings than we do for our in-person meetings. And I would be kind of if we do go back in, like we're going to go back in person sometime soon for our meetings eventually, but would there be a way to still do a live stream? I just don't want to, I appreciate that we have more people tuning in, and I would like for that to continue. So I think as we're having the discussion, can we also just kind of brainstorm or let it marinate a little bit about ways that we can continue some elements of live stream?
That is the exact issue I wanted to bring up, Michelle. I was waiting for the reverse to be brought up after Dan's discussion point was hammered out. But right now we have 41 people tuned into the live stream. I have never seen a board meeting where there have been 41 members of the public, or even the community in general, in the room where the board meetings are held. This has been arguably fantastic for visibility and transparency, and should be continued when the board resumes meeting in person.
I would like to comment. I've had staff members email me during the meetings that they were commenting on something I've said. I'm not sure if anyone else has had that, but I certainly feel like there's a bigger engagement live streaming. So even if we met in person, I feel like maybe if we met in person, we live stream it and not have it physically open to the public, but like we could be in the same room live streaming it and kind of meet in the middle.
Back to Dan's point, I don't think anything is missing besides open forum, since it is so transparent with the live stream. Because normally the public can't interact regardless. So besides the open forum, so we're not missing that component.
I'd also like
I was going to say
that.
open. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Annie.
Because I've been like virtual person here. Open forum, they come and read the letters. Is that what they do? The same thing. They just read it. Is that right? Is that how it is? Yeah.
I wonder if we could do a hybrid there where we allow somebody to record something and submit a video. I don't know, just an idea where they have a time limit and you can, like you would have in the past. Just something to think about.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. I just want to comment. I've also liked, because I've had to miss a meeting here or there. I have liked, or one time I was traveling and I was able to tune in to the live stream so I could at least pay attention to what was going on. I was in the car, so it cut in and out. And I also like having the option, another meeting I missed, I just came back and rewatched the live stream later. So,
I think it's been very helpful, Annie, in our notes, right? Just here's the link to YouTube. If you want to watch, I mean, if you want to watch it, here you go. It's there for you. So to your point, Cody, as opposed to having to cover everything, people can go back and watch it, right? So.
All right. Well, I'll definitely put it on the next workshop as just a comment. I think that once the emergency orders get lifted, I think most of us are going to feel a little more comfortable. But Justin does archive all these. Anyone could go back to a prior board meeting and listen, which is kind of nice. We didn't have that before, that much I know. Because if you missed it, you missed it. You just had the notes. Okay. All right. We would, let's go ahead and move on 12F to approve Board of Director election results. Do I have a second?
I can second. This is Dan.
Okay. Any discussion on that?
I have a question. So it looked like the participation was really low. Do you think it was because it was a new online system, or what do you think the reason for that was?
Yeah, that's a good question because I sent a lot of reminders. I looked at last year's election. It was about 100 and I think 52 people. And this was 83-ish, right? 85-ish. So it did
94.
94. Oh, okay. So we're 50 lower.
It was arguably easier, but I was trying to talk to some folks and I think maybe there's a mental block. Once you got to click a link and then you got to log in and I don't know. I was trying to give them the benefit of the doubt because it took me seconds to go through and click, right? Once you actually decide to do it. Whereas in the past, you had the paper form, filling it out and mailing and doing all that. So it's easier now than it was before. I would have expected the numbers would have gone up, right? In terms of balloting.
Do you think some people couldn't find their password? That's what I wondered. And they didn't want to ask? Or
would Justin have that? Would Justin have any of the tracking on like how many people attempted to hit the link, or I don't know, versus how many ballots we got through?
I don't know what website statistics Justin has. That's a very good question to bring up.
This has got to be the way that we're going forward, right? I mean,
yeah, I think so. I think it'll be better every year once people get used to it.
Yeah, we just got to.
And I want to, yeah. They tried this back, I think they said in 2000, Justin would know, like
2014 was the last time online voting was attempted.
And it was like half of what it was this year. So I think it is better for sure, I think. But I think it was much less. But
and for all intents and purposes, this entire process was the same process used back then as well. So almost nothing has changed except for the content itself.
Well, we'll have to remember that next year for sure. That this is what we did and how we did it. But the election committee did a great job. Thank you. And then I have been in contact with the community member who won, and they're still figuring out if that wants to happen. And then I've reached out to John for Judith Darling's contact information. So hopefully John or maybe even Cody, because I think Cody, you have that. Maybe you could reach out, Cody, and see if she's interested.
I have always communicated with her through John, so I don't actually have any.
Okay, all right. So I think, John, you were gonna get that. All right, so any other conversations on that? All right, let's go ahead and vote. Dan Ellingston,
Yes.
Cody Schneid,
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski,
Yes.
Gina Albers,
Yes.
Adam Bartz,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Burkraff,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas. It's all yeses. Motion carries. Election results certified. And we'll find out about the community member. That might have to float a little bit till we figure that out.
I have a
Okay.
question,
Yes.
Annie. What was Gina elected to? What did she fulfill?
As far as what?
Well, Gina's a replacement of Judy. So
Yeah.
I don't know what that term was,
Oh.
how did we vote? What was the language there?
For the term of Judy's term ends in June. So Gina's through June, and then
Okay.
she's off the board.
So that's what it was. I wasn't sure how that was, if that
Yeah,
was
and Adam's
something that we
off the
had to
board also.
redo or, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Just
All right.
If can we summarize? So I believe Robert's position is up this year.
Yes.
So he'll be replaced by the elected parent position.
Correct.
Gina's up, so she'll be replaced by the teacher that won.
Correct.
And then Adam is done. So if the community member that got the most votes takes it, that will be who's taking over.
That's correct.
Okay. And I'm not using their names on purpose. I assume that we can, but
Yeah, I think it's in the packet, so it's public at this point.
okay.
All right. Now what I'd like to do is review the COVID evaluations and on-campus stuff that John has on 12H.
What about?
Did I skip? Oh, the YMC con. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and would somebody like to motion to approve the YMCA contract?
This is Maggie, so moved.
Do I have a second?
This is Gina. I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion on that? All right, let's go ahead and vote. Dan Ellingston.
Just quick discussion point. So we have, I mean, last time we pushed this up because of COVID. Now we're, I mean, with no discussion, I'm assuming we're kind of gonna say, okay, because we're getting better and we need this program over the summer. Is that right? I guess that's my question before I say yes to the.
So typically, Dan, what they have done is we allow YMCA to utilize the campus. Some classrooms we've chosen to let them use building D because then they're contained, so we don't have to worry about any crossover with buildings A or B, especially B. They would like to use B, but we kind of Mrs. Froberg, who's also on the YMCA board, has negotiated with them to use building D instead. So they have their own separate, basically, entrance, and they won't impact buildings A and B or any of the maintenance that's going on. And then in return for that, then next school year, assuming we're in person, of course, then they offer the Y Care program at the beginning of the school year for the middle schools, and then they carry that throughout the entire year. So the middle school students can come in and they have Y Care provided. So those parents that need that service, they can drop their students off at school, and then they go directly from Y Care to school after that. So that's kind of the relationship, the give and take a little bit. And in the summer, we don't have classes on campus or anything going, and they need extra space. So this is something that we typically do. We have been doing every year, albeit last year was a little different with
Yeah, and
COVID and everything.
last year we decided not to because too many questions and everything. So, so if we vote yes this year, we're saying those have all been kind of we're feeling better about it this year now.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Then for them, just because I tend to, what kind of notice or what sort of information should we give if we're going to be working in our classrooms around certain summer days?
I believe they're only using 2 of the classrooms. They're not using all 5. So you would, if you're coming in, we'd have to know that ahead of time so we can make sure that they're aware of it. I believe I think we put the cap at 50 if I remember right.
Okay. So then do I email the Y person or should I email MSA admin?
No, that's something, that's something you would just coordinate with the administrator on campus.
Okay.
Any other discussion points? All right, let's vote. Dan Ellingston,
Yes.
Cody Schneid,
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski,
Yes.
Gina Albers,
Yes.
Adam Bartz,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas. Yes, so that's all yeses, motion carries. All right, item 12H. Monthly review of COVID.
Doesn't item H, did we change something?
Yeah, I see
No.
approval of monies for director research search.
Oh, that's right. I'm on the wrong one. Right, that's the wrong one. Thank you so much. That's why y'all's giving me that look. All right, 12. Yeah, so 12H, approval of monies for director search. So could I go ahead and have a motion for that?
I guess I'd like to authorize Lisa Anderson access to up to $1,000 for the interim director search, specifically for running ads.
Okay.
This is Adam. I will second.
All right. Any discussion on that?
My discussion is I thought we were allowing her to also get started with, or I guess she asked, this says director search, not interim director search. So I just want some clarification on what was asked for.
Oh. Well, I asked, I did check with Dustin, and he thought that the 600 to 1,000 this year for the interim, and then we could double that next year for the permanent director. So I guess I could do a second motion for the director search, or should I lump them together?
Right now it says the motion is for director search as it stands right now, for up to $1,000 for the search specifically for running ads.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I withdraw that and remake it?
I will withdraw my second.
All right.
I am sorry. It's okay. So I'd like to authorize up to $1,000 or to grant Lisa Anderson up to $1,000 to use for the interim director search for advertising the position, and up to $2,000 next year for advertising for the search for the permanent director position.
This is Adam. I will second.
Any other discussion on that? All right, let's go ahead and vote. Dan Ellingston,
Yes.
Cody Schneid,
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski,
Yes.
Gina Albers,
Yes.
Adam Bartz,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas. That's all yeses. Motion carries. Okay, item 12I. Do I have somebody who'd like to motion to approve the director's recommendation for contract non-renewal?
This is Maggie, so moved.
Do I have a second?
I can second. This is Dan.
Okay, Dan second. All right, discussion?
John, I would like some clarification on timelines here. When do things have to be officially to teachers? What are our guideposts here?
So the teachers that are going to be non-renewed need to be notified by the end of April. And then all other staff members would be the end of May. Then, excuse me, then we, after that, we start getting contracts. Basically, the month of May is pretty much getting contracts signed by all the teachers. And then as soon as that's done, then we start with everybody else. The admin staff has typically been the last group that gets their contracts, just because they're typically on campus, once school is out. My personal goal is to have everybody's contracts completed before that first week in June, the first full week. That would include admin staff, everybody. So that way, whoever is walking in for your interim director would have all of the contracts pretty much set. And they should have a good idea of, what positions need to get posted, if any. And at that point, I would hope to have positions posted, and then interviews could start happening. Because you don't want to wait until July or the end of June to start. By then, you've missed a lot of the boat as far as candidates go.
And then with regard, when it comes to, because one of the things that as a school we're kind of tied by when it comes to out of licensed teachers is that if it's a new position, it can be 15 days that it has to be posted on the site. But if it's a renewed out of license, they only renew for 1 year, and then we have to post it with 60 days. So what would be, what I couldn't understand from is it 60 days from the start of the position? So then for any potential out of license positions that we would have, would we need to start it would it need to be posted by June 15th? I was confused about the timeline for that, but I mean, I was trying to, and they're so vague about exactly what this, like, they say 60 days, but they don't say from when super specifically.
So in order to, you're talking about the out of field permission forms,
yep,
the OFPs. If it's a renewing OFP position, then you have to post it for 60 days before you can offer a contract to that person. And then they would have to apply to get an OFP. The turnaround that time is framed probably 2 to 3 days, depends on when you submit it. If you wait till towards the end of the summer and beginning of the school year, Pellsby gets much more busy. That can take a little longer. It can take up to 5 working days. So you want to make sure you get those positions posted far enough advance so you have you can meet that 60-day requirement if you're going to offer that position back to somebody that's already got an OFP. But if a licensed candidate applies, you must interview them. So if a tier 3 or a tier 4 candidate were to apply for that particular position, just because they are considered highly qualified by the state, you have to give them an opportunity to have that position. And I guess you'd have the interview and you see where it goes.
Okay, so then if we have positions that are out of field, waiting until June would be cutting it kind of close. So for the out of field positions, when would you say, or when do you think is a good time frame to advertise any out of fields?
So the out of field positions, I've already talked with those staff members that are in that position, so they already know the scenario that they're under. So I would post them much more sooner than later because that gives you more time on the school start up side of things. Plus the other thing is you can post it for 90 days if you want to. You don't, 60 is the minimum. So if the board approves these, then I guess I would post them sooner rather than later, although it's, it is a little awkward, but that's to have, interviews while somebody may still be on campus teaching. But that's the scenario that we're under.
John, one thing that may help me is we have your recommendation here, but they're all kind of different scenarios, right? So there are, we've got, so I think we're talking about what we call E and F here, right? It's towards the later ones of this out of field. You don't have to reference it again, but if we take that one just specifically, because in my mind I can't handle all the different scenarios. If the out of field one, it sounds like this is a requirement, not necessarily a decision for us. Is that right? Is that a statement? That's a requirement by Pellsby, the licensing board. They're a separate entity from MDE. So Pellsby has put that as a requirement. That's what it currently is. There is a possibility, and they've mentioned or alluded to this the last couple of meetings, that there is some possibility that may be waived if you have an internal candidate that you want to rehire. But that has not been approved by their board yet. So if it doesn't get approved, you have to go with the 60 days. Their recommendation actually is, if you have somebody that you want approved, is to post it right now so that the 60 days goes by, and then you offer them a contract with the idea that nobody's going to apply for it right now. But, to me, that kind of sidesteps the intent behind of posting it for 60 days. And the idea is that you want to get a highly qualified candidate to, take that position. So I guess what's the fairest way to go through this? Would you make I don't think it's fair to make a motion against the whole recommendation. I think we need to kind of piece it apart. I don't want to lengthen discussion, but it needs to be fair too. So if we did a motion on the last bullet point of yours, John, I don't know.
Before we move on, I would just like to suggest to the board that we have a review panel to investigate the two with issues. So one community member, one parent member, one staff member, one teacher member. I do not feel comfortable voting on it based as it is presented. And then we can have a special meeting later this week even.
Yeah, so I want to know about the legalities of how we can investigate this. I want to know what the professional improvement plans that have been offered, just more in depth, that we are allowed to by privacy rules. Obviously, this is a weird situation, but want to be fair to all parties here.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure what the, if
Well,
there's
we
a
don't-
request being made or what.
Well, I want to know, I mean, what are we allowed to know about the investigations, we have several complaints. Well, I don't know the substance of those complaints. I don't know what has been investigated. The most recent complaint, I reached out to you and I still don't have any information about the actual complaint, other than what was written, what the investigation was, who investigated, the timeline. I need a lot more of those informations to be able to support contract non-renewal. I want to know that all parties that were given the utmost opportunity to improve and or defend themselves, depending on the complaints or allegations.
I agree with that. I feel uncomfortable voting on this because I don't know the whole story.
And it shouldn't be public at this meeting. And so that's what I'm wondering, where are the guidelines? As it's already been said, I think this was too much information that was already given publicly, but that water is under the bridge. And so now how do we proceed in, of course, this unique situation?
We are allowed to have a closed meeting to discuss the performance, and I can't remember the exact wording of employees subject to the board authority. And as far as I'm aware, that's basically all employees. So I believe we're allowed to have a closed meeting for this. Is that correct?
The only thing is I think we have to notify them in case they wish to have it open. So I don't think we can have the closed meeting right now. And I also think we can pursue with a review panel regardless of a closed meeting, but we could do both. I just think it would be good to have a member from each party involved.
So can we do a review panel and then they can bring their findings forward at a closed meeting if the parties want it closed?
I would imagine so.
Indeed, I'm looking at, oh, sorry, I scrolled too far. I'm looking at policy 205. That's the open and closed meeting law policy. If you look at section E, closed meeting, subsection 6, I think would probably be the area that it would seem to fit. And I might be misreading, so again, please correct me. It's a dismissal hearing, a hearing on the dismissal of a licensed teacher. It's public or private based on the teacher's discretion. And it's tied to the Pupil Fair Dismissal Act. Shall be closed. So a hearing, oh no, wait. And then to the extent that the hearing is held and is closed, the closed meeting must be electronically recorded. Oh, and then sorry, section B is a hearing on the dismissal of the student pursuant to this. I was reading too fast. And the recording is not available to the public. So would that be something that would seem to fit the circumstance we are thinking of? That the purpose of the dismissal hearing is to have a closed meeting to review or discuss that? I mean, either way, it's still a closed meeting. There's a lot of different reasons you can use closed meetings. I'm trying to figure out if that's the right subsection. Or to discuss certain non-public data is subsection 8.
I know, I'll just offer up, Rob, back to your question. We had a separate discussion, a separate event, if you will, on how much information we have access to the board. And I was advised that we are able to access the information needed to make our decisions. And that includes private information. Now, the private information is that it's not meant to be disseminated publicly, right? So, but as the board, we need that information in order to make this decision. We wouldn't be asking for it otherwise. So when it comes to investigations, previous complaints, whatever that those things are alleged, if you will, that's the sort of information I do feel we need in order to make a fair decision. So I guess, John, you've got a recommendation here, and I think you were trying to walk a fine line, which is, sharing the information that needs to be shared, but then not sharing so much. And where's that line? I think we all have a different opinion of where that line is, And anyways, what I'm saying, I can say on behalf of myself, I feel like I need a little bit more. I don't want to have a list of kind of allegations, if you will, and therefore dismissal. I would like to be able to say, what to Rob's point, what was the allegation, what was the finding, what was the conclusion, what, a little bit more detail. And I don't feel that this is the right forum for that. But I do need to be respectful of this is a public institution and we need to make sure things are done publicly. So my understanding would be we do a little bit more in-depth investigation. John, we need your help and also from the administration for whatever. We also need to help support the recommendation. And that's investigated by as few people as we probably can do and still make that a fair process. And then we have to have a result come back. If we have a closed meeting, if it's more than I think, right, then it's considered a board meeting, if you would, I think, quorum. So I don't know. But then we have to come back and present to the public on each of these points what the recommendation is by the board, right? I think that would be the right process. Is that, Gina, kind of what you're saying?
I think so. Yep. So there's like a smaller group of people looks into it and can bring it back to the board in addition to the recommendation.
And then is that, what do you say, bring it back to the board? Is that the closed meeting?
I think that's something we might want to run by the lawyer just to check. I think it would fall under what Michelle said, but just to be sure, I think we should maybe run it by Mr. Martin. And yeah.
Right, so I move to amend the motion to only employees A, B, E, and F.
I second that. This is Gina.
And Rob, sorry, so you're saying we're voting on to accept the recommendation for A, B, and F, is that right?
Yep.
Okay. And that's based on, sorry, a little more discussion, but that's based on the fact that that's the process, correct? These are split out Pellsby processes, yeah.
So again, we would discuss this motion and we would vote on it, and then we would approve. Then we'd have to vote to approve it, and then that would just be A, B, E, and F, and then I would make a following motion after that process. Does that make sense to everybody? So the motion on the floor is the recommendation by the director for contract non-renewal. That was moved and seconded. I am asking to amend that to only include A, B, E, and F on the motion that was seconded. So we're in the discussion phase of that, and then we would vote on the amendment, and then we would vote for the whole thing, which means that we're just approving it as amended. And then I would ask to make a new motion to continue. If that makes sense to everybody.
So is that a first and second? Should we vote on that then? Are you voting that? I'm gonna.
Yep, so to clarify, we're only voting on that amendment.
And then to discuss the motion, correct?
Right, and then we can discuss further the motion if there's other amendments to the motion, and then we can vote on the motion.
Okay. All right, Dan Ellingston,
Yes.
Cody Schneid,
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski,
Yes.
Gina Albers,
Yes.
Adam Bartz,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas. I'm going to go ahead and recuse myself from this, please. Thank you. That is one recuse. I didn't say that right, I know. That's 8 yeses. Thank you.
So we're now back to the main motion, right?
Yep.
So now we're
We
just
did-
discussing A, B, E, and F.
Correct.
I guess all I have to say is it seems their renewal isn't based off of performance we need to investigate. It's just about qualifications. And it does look like based off of the information given, they can, if the circumstances are right, still continue working for us if the process is followed properly.
And John, just to follow up, I know you said you have discussed it with E and F. Have you discussed it with A and B? They know their situation.
Yeah, All of them are aware of it.
Thank you.
And just so I understand with regard to A and B, the tier 2 license, which are school district specific, and it's best practice, so it's best practice, but not mandated. Just so that I make sure I understand the difference between our two sections.
No, it's not mandated. They would have to, they do have to apply if their tier 2 license is expired, they will have to apply for another one.
So in this case, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to make sure. So if they can still reapply, if they reapply, then they still have to be in possession of a tier 2 or ideally tier 3 or 4?
If they apply and they have a tier 3 or 4, they wouldn't have, I mean,
yeah, then
they can apply directly. But neither of them do have a 3 or 4. They only have a tier 2 license. So, and because the tier 2 license is specific to the school, they would have to apply for a tier 2 license at MSA. They can't take their tier 2 license and go work for 833 because it's school specific.
Gotcha. Just trying to make sure that I understand the difference between like the Department of Ed requirements versus between the two different scenarios. So many different licensing scenarios.
So Rob, would this be the time to identify the review panel? Like would another amendment have to go in here or?
No, because
Sorry,
we are not considering C and D at this moment. We are only considering A, B,
Yep.
E, and F. So
Yep,
I
okay.
plan to discuss that
Okay.
after. I think we're ready to vote. I call the question.
Dan Ellingston,
Yes.
Cody Schneid,
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski,
Yes.
Dina Albert,
Yes.
Anna Bartz,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff,
Yes.
and I'm going to recuse myself from this. That's 8 yeses, 1 recuse. Thank you. Motion carries.
Right, so now we need to, I move that the board create a review panel for the recommendations to review the allegations of the non-renewal for the contracts.
This is Gina, I second.
Rob, do you intend that this review panel investigate both C and D or have separate panels for each of those individuals?
Well, that just spreads out the work, so that's hard. If we had 6 volunteers, I think we could have 2 committees. If we only have 3 volunteers, then we only have 1 committee. Just my thought there, Anna.
Can I double check the language of your motion? Right now I have motion that the board of directors create a review panel to investigate non-renewal contracts, but I feel like I'm missing parts.
Well, I mean, so I don't know if for individuals, we probably need to say for individuals C and D because we're not, I mean, that's what's left because we've already voted to non-renew. So I guess we probably don't need to add that. So let's think about it. Gina,
That's what I'm trying to.
Kind of, does that sound right?
I'm so sorry, I got distracted. Could you repeat it?
Yeah, Michelle,
Okay,
why don't you repeat it?
so I have motion that the BOD create a review panel to investigate the non-renewal contracts. And that's just where I ended it. But I feel like I'm missing words.
I don't think Rob said anything more than that.
Okay.
The question becomes, there's some meat that needs to be added, some flesh that needs to be added to that, but I'm not sure that necessarily needs to be in the motion. That can be in the discussion. So I think we need a second before we can continue with the discussion there.
Oh, I think I was the second.
Oh, that's right, you did. Sorry, I forgot that. So then, board, we need to decide how many. We need a timeline. We need to set a closed meeting to discuss it.
Yeah, we need to, you have to do the open meetings still apply, so we still have to have the posting requirements because it's not qualified under the emergency meeting statute for closed meeting.
John, I guess a question to you would be how long would it take to pull together this information and share it with this subcommittee? Or
most of that I have those documents. So in light of a couple of public data requests, it's probably going to take a couple of days at least.
So, I mean, it would be nice just to play out this scenario, Rob, for the data to be sitting for this committee to be able to review it and then to have a meeting to discuss it, right? So, I mean,
yeah, so I would think we'd want to have our closed meeting a week from today. So either the 26th or the 27th. And so we should probably look at our calendars and work backwards from there. What are people's availability the 26th and 27th?
I am free.
I am free the 26th.
Others?
Because we don't have school on Monday, I would prefer the 27th.
I'm open. 26th.
Either way. Maggie?
I am not available either.
Okay, so where does our rules on quorum? 6?
We just have to have it.
5.
5 is our quorum?
It's 5, right?
Yeah.
50%.
Okay. Michelle?
I'm also going to be gone on the 26th, but I could do the 27th.
Okay, so raise your hand if you're available the 27th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that's a quorum. How many said that? And there was more that wouldn't be there on the 25th, right? Or 26th, right? Because that was 2 teachers. And
Wait, okay, we're raising our hand.
We were the 27th was the Tuesday. That was the one you couldn't be at,
right.
But there were several teachers that couldn't be at the 26th.
Okay, well, let's do 26th and raise our hand.
I agree.
So that is 5.
Yep.
And then the 27th was 6. Did I see 6 hands?
Do the 27th.
Oh, the 27th.
That's 6. So that's one more. Okay, so I think it's the 26th.
Just one more thought. Is it possible to pull it together by Friday?
We have to be able to do the investigation. So if he doesn't give us the documents.
Wait, isn't it the 27th? Weren't we just raising hand for 27th?
Yeah, Tuesday the 27th.
I was just
sorry.
asking about Friday as a third possibility, that's all.
Are you, I hate to interrupt, but are you going to need me at this meeting or not?
I don't think so.
Okay, because I'm not available either in the evening, so that's.
Yep, no, I appreciate that.
No, that's fine.
If we can get the documents, in the next few days, if we have any questions, we could shoot those to you offline, maybe. I'm not sure. Just speak, yeah. Would that work?
Yeah, I'm going to be out of the state over the weekend, so I won't be available at all. So if you're going to send me questions, I would have to have them before 4 o'clock on Friday, and then I'm going to be out of the area, so I won't be back until Tuesday morning.
That's fair.
Is it possible to have the information to the team? I know 2 days is pushing it. Is it possible to have it to them maybe by the end of Wednesday or early Thursday? So then if they have questions, they can get them to you and you have a chance to respond? Does that count? I don't want to, I'm just trying to think of the calendar.
Some of that information I'm going to have to get from the other administrators. If you want the details, because I don't have all of the details. So I do have the basic documents that have the information on them.
Okay, who's willing to be on the team?
Before you volunteer, I would just teacher board members, if you are involved in the situation at all as a witness or as a participant, you should probably recuse yourself just because of a conflict of interest.
If we were involved as a witness but didn't remember it, would you let us know? Or is there a way to let us know? Like, I just, sometimes if there's things or events where we don't remember, or if like our name is mentioned, but we don't know and we were never asked about something, we wouldn't know.
No, if you were, no, I'm sorry for interrupting. If you are interviewed about those scenarios, yeah, you would know it.
Okay. Didn't want to accidentally.
I can volunteer, but I won't be at the meeting.
I think that's totally okay.
I think so too.
I would like to volunteer, but I won't be at the meeting, and I don't want 2 people in that situation.
I agree.
So
a volunteer as tribute.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to appoint Adam. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, I'm willing to do it if none of the other parents want to jump up and do it.
Well, what makes the most sense, Rob? I mean, I'm also happy to help. I like because this is for the school that we have a parent, but I don't want to have too many people kind of going into this more than we need. So I like that idea of having one. I think Gina, you mentioned at least one from each, but we don't need 9. I don't think in this situation. But we have the subcommittee, and then we also have the closed meeting. Have 6 people, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So we have then 3 people that would be the one that John would send the information to, and they would gather that and present to the closed meeting. Is that our current?
That's the plan.
Okay.
Are the individuals also going to be interviewed?
I certainly plan to look at the materials if Dan, am I doing this?
Go ahead. Well, who's the best suited for it? Do you feel? I mean, I want to help, and we need to get to the bottom of it. No question. But I think you have the same. So, are you better suited to represent the parents? I will defer to you if you're happy to do it.
I think this is an area that I've dealt with in the past in my job. So.
Okay. Then I would rather, Jennifer, are you okay if Rob represents the parents in this case?
Yes, please, because I'm going out of town on Friday morning, so that would be great.
Okay. Well, Rob, then any assistance you need, let me know, and I'll let you lead from the parents. Okay.
Yeah, but I certainly plan to interview as best I can as I can contact people.
Okay.
And again, we'll Maggie and Adam and I will touch base after this to figure out how we can proceed. Okay. All right. So then, so help us out, Michelle.
One question you have as part of this, well, not question, but just a reminder, just in case, if there's anything involving teacher growth plan, TGP or PIP, professional improvement plan, that's detailed out in the staff handbook too. So if you're trying to make any comparisons or just kind of have like a checklist thing, it's just a bullet, it's easily bullet pointed in the staff handbook. So it just makes quick reference.
Yep, got it. That Maggie will be my go-to for that.
And just to be extremely clear, that information is available to you guys as board members to follow through on this discussion, right? So it is considered private information, but in this case, I was advised that we need it. And if there's any questions, we could talk to Jim again too.
Yeah. Very good.
And
So,
when,
Michelle,
what time will the meeting be on Tuesday?
what's the earliest people can meet on Tuesday?
If I stay at school, I can meet by 4:15.
I can too.
I could actually do that too.
It's fine.
How about 4:30?
I'll find a way to make that work.
Also fine.
Okay. Yeah, because I can get out of my stuff a little early, but 4:15 would really be pushing it. So, all right. So 4:30 closed meeting on Tuesday, the 27th of April. And Gina, you can put together a Zoom for that?
I will indeed.
And then we have to we start with it open, right? And
Yep.
I think we should also ask Dan to chair that meeting.
Sure.
Okay. Everybody agree? Right?
I do have questions about the recording for the closed meeting portion. For the board members that cannot attend that meeting, is that available to us, or is it only available to people that attend the meeting?
It can be available too.
Well, it depends. This is why we need to ask Jim, like which part of the closed meeting it applies. Because if our application for closed meetings is based on closed meeting, the part 6 that I read, then it specifically says that the recording is not available to the public. So I'm assuming that we're not counted as public, but I would feel better if he guided us as to which subsection of closed meeting. Is it generically subsection A? Or not, sorry, subsection A to the general preliminary closed meeting for somebody under the board's purview so that'd be number 4, or would it be number 6?
And who's reaching out? Are you reaching out to Jim?
I don't have any Jim powers. I
I
can.
can ask.
I will. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, good. All right. Are we clear, folks, on what we're voting on? All right, I call the question, Manny.
Dan Ellingston,
Yes.
Cody Schneid,
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski,
Yes.
Tina Albers,
Yes.
Adam Bartz,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas. I'm recusing myself. That is 8 yeses. Motion carries. All right, let's see what we have left for tonight. Now, finally, we got the 12J. I kept wanting to hop there, but review a monthly COVID eval, ratings, campus procedures update, any of that. Do we have any questions, any other comments from John or? I
So
know-
John, can you just quickly give us a breakdown on how the who's going to do what? You said that you're sharing it with the directors, assistant directors.
Yeah, so the vast majority of the COVID-19 coordinator duties are going to be performed by Shannon Froberg, because she's been working with Mrs. Seeberger on almost all of the areas, plus she's in the same building, or was, I should say, in the same building. So it made most logical sense for her to take one for the team, so to speak, and absorb a lot of those duties. So a lot of the things that Mrs. Seeberger was doing on task-wise, the big tasks, she will be doing those as well. The big one is the weekly evaluation as to where is our number Should we stay in partial in-person learning, or should we transition to distance learning? The one update I do have on this, the one that is in the packet was from April 5th. The COVID number from last week was, we actually went up to 62, even though the rates in the county are increasing. So the staff and the students, procedurally, compliance-wise, increased. So our numbers has gone up a little bit there. So we're able to stay in partial in-person. Today we had our COVID testing, and Mrs. Froberg sat in with Mrs. Seeberger to observe how that's done, get the protocols down. So when we do that in another 2 weeks, then we'll do that as well. But by and large, and that's part of the reason we redistributed a lot of the duties is because Mrs. Froberg is going to be doing a lot of those, and it's a daily task. You got to go around and collect all this information. The contact tracing is by far the most important thing that person does right now, because if we do have a reported case, we have to be able to get those people quarantined. And a lot of the protocols then have to be checked up on to make sure that we're collecting all that information. I feel I talked with her a little bit. You know, she's a little apprehensive about it, as anybody would. It's a brand new thing, and it's you know, it's something she hasn't had to do. And fundamentally, it keeps the school open or closed based on what those numbers come out to be. So this first week, she's going to need a lot of extra help, and next week as well. But I'm confident that that we'll be able to do the major functions and get those done. Some of the minor things about updating a couple of words here or there, they may not get done just because of the time frame.
John, are we going to post again for this position?
That's what I plan on doing. The only part about that is if we don't get a candidate within the first week, by the time you get them onboarded and up and running, they're really going to be on campus for a week, maybe 2 weeks at the most. So
was it just through the rest of this school year?
It's just through the end of the school year, and that's when it's over. So that's and I guess that's kind of I would prefer to post and try to do, you know, fill that position if we have somebody that's available and applies, but the likelihood based on the first time around is pretty minimal that we'll get anybody to apply. So we're prepared to finish the year without it, without another person, but it would be nice to have somebody there just to reallocate, you know, and go back to some of the duties. We'll see what we get. I'm not really overly hopeful that we'll get somebody though, because the demands are pretty high.
Yeah, sorry, John. I would encourage that.
No,
post. You never know, I guess, but it would be great to take some of that load off of the administration, right? So.
Right.
And one other comment that maybe it's just me, but the report is fantastic that we're getting a report. But if I could see trends, you know, like week on week, what are the numbers? Are they going up? Are they going down? How's our compliance? I see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, at least in this report here, but it might be nice to just see. I don't know if there's a way to format the report when Shannon takes a look at it, just to see a trend, or are we just looking at the number for that week and that's the decision?
That's pretty much what we were. Well, obviously the number that came out on Friday was our second one, so it's kind of hard to, you know, base a trend on 2 data points.
Yeah.
But yeah, the number that we're really looking at is, are we over 60? Because that's the number we really have to worry about. And part of that is, you know, the zip code rates. We don't really have. There's nothing we can do about that. That's based on community infection rates. There are some things that we can, you know, control, but you know, if we have an outbreak on campus, we're going down or shutting down, obviously, and we're not that high above 60 where we have a whole lot of room to spare.
Yeah.
If it's in a Google Sheets, you can take some of the columns and import them into bar graphs and line graphs inside the sheet data. But I don't know if that's the format the data takes.
And Mrs. Seeberger had set this up, and to be honest, I think she would be the first one to admit that numbers aren't her forte. She's much more the language arts person. So we may be, I don't know. I don't want to speak for Mrs. Froberg and how much time she will or will not have with this. So I don't want to put a task on her without knowing where we're at.
If by any means she needs it, with the fact that a number of them are in Google Forms, they can be automatically, the results can automatically import into Google Sheets, and then, you know, the data can be analyzed that way as well. So depending on what she has or what she wants to do, if she needs any help getting it set up so that they import automatically into a Google Sheets doc or things like that, I'm happy to help. Jenna Babbs is a Google person too. She could help, I'm sure. So just anything that makes it streamlined or like faster, easier. Tech doesn't always do that, but sometimes it can. And then secondly, one other question entirely unrelated, because we're shifting graduation, is it okay for me to email the admin team just to see what needs to be done and how can I help facilitate those parts so that we keep them moving? Is that okay? I don't want to overstep.
No, that's fine. Actually, you know, Carrie Ham and Mrs. Froberg were kind of spearheading that. So yeah, if it would be good for them. I mean, obviously I'm going to meet with them. And those of you that volunteered, thank you very much. I'm going to give Carrie your names, and we'll probably have to have a meeting and figure out how we set all this up and how this all works. But we will have graduation. It's just a matter of where, and the other part of that is it's unknown. You know, if we have a spike in numbers, that kind of drives the decision.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, I'll throw it out there just in case. So then if they know specific things like that. So just as soon as some of those details are, I'm willing to help out, organize, whatever.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, any other thoughts? All right, we are heading into 13, which is just updating some of our workshop agenda items, although that's kind of shifting this time of year, as you could tell. So there's that, dates and times of upcoming board meetings. We've got our May, and you've set a...
We missed item K, Annie.
Oh, that's because I didn't have it on written down.
Yep. We added it in.
Yes,
definitely.
All right. So that do you have that, like, I forgot how we called it, but anyway, basically what I would like to do is, so let's go ahead and move into JK 12K, which was I'd like to motion that the personnel committee should propose their work until a new interim director is hired and the committee is tasked to return to it.
I second that.
Okay. So discussions, here's the reasons. A new interim will bring different experiences to the process that will hopefully help facilitate the evaluation process. And also a new interim will be looking for their own contract or their own evaluation process. So they will be working towards what is best for the school. And so for those two reasons, I'd like to motion for that. Any other?
Will you reread the motion?
Yes. The personnel committee should postpone their work until a new interim director is hired and the committee is tasked to return to it.
Annie, can you, like, real high level, what is the personnel committee working on right now? Were they doing an assistant director, or what was the main?
Yeah, so evaluation processes right now for the directors, the assistant directors, but so right now that's what we're working on.
So the motion is that we put a pause on that until we have an interim director come in and
Correct, because they might want to have input on eval processes for assistant directors, et cetera. You know, it's kind of all combined, kind of a chain. Is there any other discuss? Especially I have three of you. I have Jennifer and Rob. How do you feel about that?
I think it feels great.
Yeah.
Yep, all for it. We got other work to do anyway, and the personnel committee just needs a refresh there.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Discussion? No? All right. I'm going to go ahead and vote on that. Dan Ellingston,
Yes.
Annie, Cody Schneip,
Yes.
Rochelle Kurkowski,
Yes.
Gina Albers. Oh, Adam Bard,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas. It's all yeses, motion carries.
Who was the second on that one?
Oh, Rob.
Me.
Thank you.
Okay, so we see that, thank you for that. And then future board meetings, I've got that agenda items there, dates and times, May 17th, other than the closed meeting you've set. And I'm going to go ahead and motion to adjourn. I will move to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a second?
I can second. This is Dan.
Okay, go ahead and vote on this. Dan Ellingston,
Yes.
Cody Schneip,
Yes.
Michelle Kurkowski,
Yes.
Gina Albers,
Yes.
Adam Bartz,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas. Yes, look at it. I'm like, no wonder. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting at 8:57. Thank you very much.